analysis of union budget. And we have eminent speakers and galaxy of speakers here with us to address us on this. I request our chairman Pramod Aregde to escort CATV Mohandas Pai sir to the dais and greet him with a floral bouquet. I request our past chairman T. Srinivas to escort Padamchand Khincha sir to the dais and greet him. Request Manjunath Hallur, Vice Chairman, to escort Dr. M. Govinda Rao to the dais. Chandra Prakash Jain, please escort Mr. S.S. Naganand sir to the dais. We also have Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea with us. I request Srinivas, past chairman, to escort Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea to the dais. Sorry. Welcome to each one of you. I request our chairman to give his welcome address and opening remarks.
Good evening, esteemed panelists, dear members, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute honor to welcome all of you for this awareness program on the analysis of Union Budget 2025, organized by Bengaluru branch of SRC of ICI. It's been more than 3 decades, as our secretary was mentioning, and it's always an absolute treat to watch them here and to hear their insights. This is just not a post-budget session. Rather, as chartered accountants, we are mostly interested in taxation aspects, but it is also very much important for us to understand the macro aspects as well. And it is always an opportunity to decode the government's roadmap for our economic growth, fiscal consolidation, and structural reforms. As a finance professional, policymakers, and as a business leaders, we are just not the spectators, we are an active participants in the nation building. To dissect these changes, we have a panel of experts, each a stalwart in their domain, and we all know CATV Mohandas Pai, who will give us insights on bridging the taxation, businesses, and policies. We also have CAH Padamchand Khincha, whom we always known for direct taxation, and we will be hearing him further on 14th of February on clause by clause. And also we have our distinguished panelist, Dr. M. Govinda, S.S. Naganand, and Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea, whose expertise in finance, law, and investments will help us to understand the broader macroeconomic picture. This year's budget is a significant one, not only for its number, but also its as vision. As our Honorable Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, rightly said, the tax system must evolve and the aspirations of New India simplified, transparent, aligned with the global best practices. For the years in India has seen a complex filled with interpretation and compliance burdens, but this budget signals a paradigm shift towards simplification, predictability, and tax regime that fuels the investment and innovation. The finance minister has yet to, we are all waiting for the next week to see what is the new bill which will be released. With this, I welcome you all to this program, and also I welcome the dignitaries on the dais for this program. Let's have a fruitful discussion, and also it's always, as I said, it's a privilege to hear them out, to understand the macro aspects of the budget. And also, I'm sure that with the the way Mohandas sir always looks into it and gives us a food for thought on this budget is always a welcoming approach. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chairman. Before we inaugurate the program, I would like to introduce the speakers for the day. First on the list is TV Mohandas Pai, CA TV Mohandas Pai. I mean, all of us know him and we have heard him so much, but most importantly, I would like to say he's a voice which is known for all the civic and voice for local concerns and societal concerns. So, and for also talks about brand Bangalore. We are proud that he is a chartered accountant and he is among us today. So thank you for being here, sir. CA Padamchand Khincha, sir, whom we have all looked up always and learned taxes from him. So it's a pleasure to have him here with us. And a quick intro of him is like this. He's a partner at Hesse Khincha & Co., who has spearheaded the income tax consultancy and litigation practice of the firm. He's a prolific writer on various topics on income tax, co-authored in many books. And the most important of them is the 13th edition of Commentary on Income Tax by Sampath Iyengar. He has also been part of many initiatives undertaken by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and also part of the government's and CBDT initiatives, who has been always consulted by the government for all his expertise and in the process of lawmaking. So it's he is a commerce graduate from Bangalore University, securing 5th rank, and he also secured 25th rank in his chartered accountancy. So thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here, sir. The first panelist for the day is Mr. Govinda Rao. He is a chairman of Karnataka Regional Imbalances Redressal Committee. He is also a counselor for Takshashila Institution, Bangalore. He is a member of 14th Finance Commission and also member of Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister between 2004 to 2013. He is also, he specializes in microeconomics and fiscal policies and tax policies and reforms. He writes on in a monthly column in Business Standards. He is the managing editor of a bi-monthly online journal called Indian Public Policy Review. So it is a pleasure having you here. Thank you for consenting and being here with us, sir. S.S. Naganand, sir, is the second panelist today with us. He is a chartered accountant and a lawyer. He is right now a senior advocate and former Advocate General of Karnataka. He qualified both CA and LLB in the same year. In the year 1981, while he started his practice, soon he moved on to be a lawyer and represents regularly at Supreme Court and on international arbitrations and other constitutional law matters. He is currently a vice president of the Bar Association of India and is a member of the executive committee of Law Asia, which is the Federation of Bar Association for Asia and Pacific. He is the chairman of Maharani Lakshmi Ammani College Trust and trustee of Sri Satya Sai Central Trust. He has widely traveled and a linguistic. He has written a commentary, English commentary on Adi Shankaracharya's Prashnottara Ratna Malika. And his commentary on Viveka Deepine, he has been translated into multiple languages. So thank you for being here and it's a pleasure, sir. We have Saurabh Mukherjea with us, Mr. Saurabh Mukherjea. He is the chief investment officer of Marcellus Investment Managers. He is educated at London School of Economics, where he earned BSc in Economics with first class honors and MSc in Economics with distinction in micro and economics and macroeconomics. He is the co-founder of Clear Capital and also he was rated as the Extel survey by the Extel survey as one of the top small cap analysts in the UK. Prior to setting up Marcellus, Saurabh was the CEO of Ambit Capital. He is a SEBI registered investment advisor and authored 6 books, which are best-selling books: Gurus of Chaos, Unusual Billionaires, Coffee Can Investing, The Low Risk Route of Stupendous Wealth, The Victory Project, The 6 Steps to Peak Potential, Unfiltered, and The CEO and the Coach. And the last one is Behold the Leviathan, the unusual rise of modern India. He is a fellow member of the Royal Society of Arts. So it's a pleasure having you here. Thank you for being here, Saurabh. With this, now we formally inaugurate the seminar. So I request all the dignitaries on the dais to come out to the lamp, and also our MC members to come out to the dais. Yes.
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते अस्मिन् लोकः शितः सर्वे तदूनात्यति कश्चन एतद्द्वैत 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 एतद्द्वैत
Thank you, and request everyone to take your seats. And also people at the end, please request all of you to settle down. There are many seats in the front also. I would request all of you to come to the front rows. So,
Second year of the budget presentation to all of you. In all these years, we have tried to understand what the budget means in terms of the economy, quality of life, and growth for the people of this country. And if you go back, please go back. Go back. Yeah. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman creates history with the 8th consecutive budget in Parliament. Will she make more than 10? We have to wait and see. So far, she's been good for 10. And they still got 3 more budgets to finish before the term runs out. Next. And we have a very eminent panel today. Dr. Rao is the Tsar of public finance. He's worked with the Finance Commission, and he must tell Chief Minister Siddaramaiah that he is responsible for Karnataka getting less money. Not to blame Modi, but to blame him, because he works with them and tells them how to give the allocation, and he'll explain. Naganand, of course, is a very eminent lawyer who's now got great wisdom to interpret Shankaracharya's preachings, because to understand Shankaracharya and write about him requires a lot of super intelligence. I'm sure he's got a direct connection with somebody overseas, not an overseas, somebody above us. Then Saurabh Mukherjea is the man of the markets. He'll tell you how to make money, not every year, every day, but over time. That is very clear, because we can only make money over time, because if you try to do every day, it is option and crypto and all the nice stuff, which I'm sure all of you are doing anyway. Next. Next, please.
So sorry.
हेलो कौन है? मैं वो हूँ जो हर साल बजट का इंतजार करता है। मैं वो हूँ जिसकी बीवी पूछती है कि आज खाना कैसे बनेगा। अरे साफ साफ बोलो ना, तुम कौन हो? आई एम जस्ट अ स्टूपिड कॉमन मैन। अरे तुम चाहते क्या हो? मैं चाहता हूँ कि आप मुझ जैसे स्टूपिड कॉमन मैन का ख्याल रखें। देखो मैं हर साल सस्ता करती हूँ ना सामान, सोना, कार, मोबाइल सब सस्ता करती हूँ ना, फिर क्या दिक्कत है? अरे कभी दूध भी सस्ता करिए, कभी सब्जियां भी सस्ती करिए। मैं चाहता हूँ कि अगर मेरा बच्चा 100 रुपए घर से लेकर बाहर निकले तो झोला भर के राशन लेकर आए, और उसके बाद भी 10 रुपए बच जाए। देखो तुम अपनी बातों से मुझको मजबूर नहीं कर सकते हो। अरे हमारी भी तो मजबूरी है मैडम, हमें भी तो घर चलाना होता है और मुझे देश चलाना होता है। खैर परेशान मत हो, हम जरूर इन बातों का ख्याल रखेंगे। हर बार यही सुनते हैं।
Well, the common man has been paying a lot of tax. Of course, all of you are common men. The educated middle class paying taxes, heavy taxes. We all had a hope that they'll do something for the middle class. Now, we must understand India. 1.4 billion people, population growth rate is less, fertility is 2.0. India will age from now on. We got 13 crore people above the age of 60. It will become 20 crore above the age of 60 in 2030. Tamil Nadu's population will start shrinking by 2035. Karnataka's population will start shrinking by 2040. And India's population could start shrinking by 2045 or 2050. So we don't have a population problem because we're producing less children. People are busy playing the F&O game in the market and the crypto game, I guess. Young people have to work harder. Literacy is 80%. We have $3.9 trillion in GDP, 6.4% growth this year, and everybody is complaining India's growth is down. India is seeing economic disaster. 6.4% is economic disaster. We'll see, we'll ask Dr. Rao about his comments. PPP, third largest, $16 trillion. PPP is a basket of goods and services in dollar terms, and per capita is 2,700, brings it down. And if you look at data, Dr. Rao, out of 1.4 billion people, 1 billion people live on less than $1,000 a year. The balance 400 million on $6,000 a year. And out of the 400 million, 100 million live on $10,000 a year, growing at 8%. In PPP terms, the $10,000 is about $38,000. That 100 million is the consuming class, 400 million in the consuming class, rest are the aspiring class. And export-import are 55% of GDP. We have $640 billion reserves in 24 December. Now it's 625. Every day is coming down. External borrowing is low. Total external debt is low. And the problem is interest to gross revenue is 25%, which is pretty high now. And that has to come down. Next. And look at this. Population has grown at 1.4%, 91. Dr. Rao, when India got freedom and got the constitution in 1950, we're the biggest economy in Asia. China was destroyed in the war, Southeast Asia in the war, and Japan in the war. And we had a good industrial base, 1.5 billion pounds due as debt from Great Britain. Great Britain devalued the currency, did not allow us to convert that into dollars, which dollar was appreciating because they're going down the tube. And then Nehru bought some old vehicles from the British Army with, Krishna Menon and all that, the scandals. And he brought in what is called socialism to bring in a socialistic paradise. We were supposed to become a socialistic paradise where government ran everything, and we put our hand out, they gave us some money, we should be happy with that. So India grew at 3.5% from 1950 to 1980. The world grew at 4.5%, Asia 6.5%. We became poorer in 1980 compared to 1950. And we did not know. We all grew up during that time. They all grew up much later. They were born much later. 80 to 90, we grew at 5.5%. Debt grew from 20 billion to 80 billion in the 10 years because we lived on borrowing. 91, we are broke, $5 billion of reserves. We opened up. And then the magic started. We grew from 275 billion in 91 to 3.9 trillion, 8.1% a year in dollar terms. In rupee terms, we have grown from, in rupee terms, we grow from about 5.32 lakh crores to 325 lakh crores, 12.9% per year in rupee terms. It's been incredible growth. Just imagine if all of you get economic freedom, what you can do. We were suppressed economically because private capital was suppressed. The only mistake they made, they shouldn't have private capital. Export-import has grown at 11%, foreign exchange reserves. Savings is 30.2%, investment 31%. People say we're not investing, we invest $1 trillion. China and America, the only two countries which invest more than us globally. We're investing $1 trillion, Saurabh. $250 billion by Government of India and the state government, $350 billion by the private sector, and the balance 400 by the household sector, largely housing and gold or whatever it is. Next. This is some India's GDP growth rate, and we can see, I think it'll be more than 6.4% because this quarter has been good. Government spent more on capex. Last quarter, they didn't spend money on capex. They're sitting on the money in the RBI, and I think this quarter they spent it, so growth will be higher. Next. And we are where China was in 2008. That is 25 years back, right? Not 25. How many years back? 17 years. Huh? Next. And compared to the world, we are the largest, we are the fastest growing large economy. So much for the economic disaster that people talk about, right? Now Trump is come, you got to see what happens to the world. And inflation is 4%. And inflation, Dr. Rao will tell you, is based upon the CPI weights of 2011-12, where food is 46%. And now if you, food is 46%, per capita income in 2011-12 was 71,000 rupees. Last year was 2,11,000 rupees, but the weights remain the same. So the 6 wise men sitting in MPC in RBI deciding for 2 days about interest rates, they raise interest rate thinking tomato, onion, potato prices will respond to interest rates. All of you know tomato, onion, potato prices respond to rain and local mandi and local cornering, right? One politician in Maharashtra corners the onion market in Lasangao every year and makes 2,000 crores. And they think, these wise men, that interest rates will impact that. Core inflation is 3.1% or so. And this is something very absurd that we have with 6 wise men deciding interest rates. Next. The world is changing, and this is important for us to understand the source of geopolitical power. In the next 10 years, economic power will move to the emerging markets as against the OECD. US will grow, Europe may not grow much, Japan is not growing, except that population is shrinking, and the world may grow at 3.1% with emerging markets higher, and India certainly will be a star because all of you are going to work 90 hours a week from now on and make more wealth. Saurabh works 100 hours or something. He's traveling all the time and working, so you better work 90 hours if you want to make more money. Next. And we must compare only with China. Don't compare us with UK, which is 1/20th of India. UK is the same size as Karnataka. You know, US is about 333 million, 1/4 of India in population, right? We got huge population and huge problems, 29 different states, 50 political parties, 450 TV channels, 2,500 newspapers. You understand? Now you look at this, China and us are same. China's population shrank last year by 1.5 million people. Year before that, 2 million. So absolute population is shrinking. They live longer, literacy is higher. Because in 1949, when Mao took over, Mao said, women hold up half of heaven, educated China's women, so they're better. Our Nehru did not educate India's women. Literacy was 41%, I think, in 1991, if I'm right, and women are 25%. Now literacy has gone to 80%, men are 85, women are maybe 75 or something like that. So I think we should educate our women to make sure. That's why, madam, you have to come and enlighten all of us because you are a great white hope. Because after this new parliament, you will have political power all across India. Maybe you should become a MP next. So GDP 3.9 trillion, China is 19. They started in 78 opening up, we started 91. PPP, we are just 16 to 39. China is the largest exporter, largest importer, largest foreign currency reserves, and maybe the largest and the largest debt, internal debt to GDP compared to any other country. Next. Now we'll come to Honorable Finance Minister, what she has to say.
As we complete the first quarter of the 21st century, continuing geopolitical headwinds suggest lower global economic growth over the medium term. However, our aspiration for a Viksit Bharat inspires us, and the transformative work we have done during our government's first 2 terms guides us to march forward resolutely.
Finance Minister bravely reading out the budget. Nobody knew what she's going to do. Next. Yeah. Now, she said that the aspiration of Viksit Bharat inspires us and transformative work we're doing guides us. So the question I want to ask each one of you, starting with Dr. Rao, is, do you think, looking forward by 2047, we can realize the vision of Viksit Bharat? Nothing to do with the budget. I will ask the question about the budget, but generally, looking at all the economic policies, the vision given by a Prime Minister, do you think we have a chance of achieving that?
Well, nothing is impossible, but at the same time, there are severe challenges. If you, I mean, at the, sort of, to be called a developed country, you need to have a per capita income of $14,205. And ours is $2,700 now. That would require us, in per capita terms, a growth rate of somewhere about 7 to 7.5%, which means aggregate growth would be close to 9%. I mean, on an average over the next 23 years. Now that is asking for too much, but at the same time, there have been years when the country has grown at 9%. That would require quite a lot of reforms to be undertaken. Even apart from reaching there, there's a huge problem of unemployment. And obviously, if you want an inclusive growth, if you have somewhere about 10 million people joining the workforce every year, and if 43% of the people are in agriculture, which produces just about 15% of GDP, and another 43% are working in small and medium industries, and we need to really move them to higher paying jobs. Quite a lot of work needs to be done. Quite a lot of reforms needs to be done. I had written a series of articles on these. And this requires, freeing the land, sort of factor markets, both land and labor. It requires a whole lot of skilling of the people. It requires a lot more of education and focus on urban infrastructure and finance and many more, if I have to say. Cost of borrowing has to come down for the businesses to do the things. Because you see, with your fiscal deficit at more than 7.5%, even after all the adjustment made, because you have about 3.5% coming from the states. With that, and when your household sector financial saving is just about 5.3%, there is no borrowing space left for you. And obviously, if you have SLR and CRR and then priority sector lending, the amount of money available to the private sector borrowing is less, and the interest rates will be high. At that interest rate, if, in order to get your growth rate, you need to have a 40% of GDP investment every year. If your incremental capital output ratio is 5. Now, if 40%, which would mean that there is a lot more of investment that needs to be done, and in order to do that lot more of investment, cost of borrowing will have to come down, which basically means the government will have to continue to withdraw. So we need to really ask a question whether the government is required to do what it is doing. No, in other words, it doesn't do what it should. It does a lot of things which it don't. I think it should withdraw, and then a lot more of things have to be done. It's as I said, it's a medium and long-term issue, and one can go on with that, but I'll stop here.
Dr. Rao, if you are asked this question 15 years back, would you have given the same answer? If you are asked the same question 15 years back, would you have given the same answer?
No way. No way. No, because that's the time when we never assumed that the private sector existed. Because if you were talking about 91, obviously that was complete freedom that we have got, economic freedom that we have got. Even otherwise, private sector role, we continue to have the legacy, in terms of the policy paradigms, had continued to exist. So obviously, 15 years ago, no way I wouldn't have said this, but
now
thankfully we are
optimistic.
We are thinking about it. We can talk about it. This is an aspirational goal. We can achieve it, but we need to do reforms.
Brilliant. Naganand, what is your opinion?
I won't touch the economist's point of view. I think he's very eloquently said that what as we said. But I would look at it like this, that if you want the country to grow, if you want the country to develop, the budget is not the only thing that matters. There has to be change of mindset. There has to be a wholehearted effort from every citizen. I think I would, throw the ball back at the chartered accountants, at the lawyers, at all the professionals, as to what are you doing for the country? How can you help the country? Now, the regulatory affairs in the country are so, mired in procedure that you can't get any decision at any level. If today I want to sell a flat in Bangalore, it takes me 6 months to get an e-khata. Until you get an e-khata, you cannot register a document. And where does this end? See, the idea of having a Viksit Bharat or a fully developed Bharat in 2045 or 47 is a very great goal to have. You must have a goal. But we have to work towards the goal. And that means that a lot of regulatory mechanisms have to be dismantled. And until that is done, I don't think, India is going to go. Of course, we have done a lot of dismantling has happened, but we have a long way to go. Until that happens, I don't think the individual initiative of our great Indian, diaspora from outside and the great Indians who live in this country, they're all going to be stifled, So that's what I think is my major concern, as to how we're going to remove these infrastructural bottlenecks. Slowly, some things we see, Gift City and things like that, I mean, these are, a silver lining somewhere.
Saurabh, you worked in the private sector. You came from London to see the great hope for India. What do you think now, sitting here and looking at the vision? What is your view?
So let me focus on the good news. But before I do that, let me thank both ICI Bangalore and Mohandas Paiji for letting me part of this august panel, elite panel. As an economist, I've looked up to Dr. Govinda, learned a lot from him. As an investor, I've tried to learn from Mohandas Paiji how to run a business. As someone who has to deal with Indian taxes, Khincha Saab has been a mentor, and privilege being with Naganand Saab. So absolute privilege being here. Let me focus on the good news first, and then I'll come to the bad news. In one of the slides, I think slide 5, the 30-year CAGR of per capita income was given. It's roughly 7%, dollar CAGR, right? Dollar CAGR in per capita income is 7%. So rule of 72 means every 10 years we will double our per capita income. Assume for a minute we are at $3,000. 10 years hence will be $6,000. 20 years hence, 2045, we'll be at $12,000. Not quite at the $14,000, which will make us Viksit, but there and thereabouts, right? And interestingly, if you do the math using the data in the slides, which are outstanding, you'll realize by 2045, if we do 7% per annum per capita, 2045 will be where China is today. So again, the prognosis that we're roughly 20 years behind China bears out like that, right? So that's the good news. Now let me give you the slightly tougher news. If the folks who are controlling the slides could go to slide 6. I think slide 6 will show you in a nutshell what the challenge is. It's both a challenge for investors and an opportunity for investors. Just one slide by. So this is India's GDP, right? And you can see what happens in India. Even if you had taken this slide back 20 years, you would have seen the same picture. We are able to do 2 to 3 years of good growth in India, and then the supply side problems kick in. Land prices roar up, money becomes scarce, capital markets goes up, or cost of capital goes up, as we put it in finance jargon, and usually some sort of labor market challenge also kicks in, right? So in different cycles, this problem kicks in slightly different flavors, but roughly, what we economists call supply side problems kick in after 2 to 3 years of good growth, right? Now, the same has happened this time. So we had 3 years of strong growth after COVID. The 2025 conk-off, and I suspect the year ending F26, the year to March 26 will be similar. Once again, the supply side problems have kicked in. Land prices have zoomed up. Industrial land prices have zoomed up. And taking a cue from what Naganand sir said, I'll give you an example. Many of our investee companies who are smaller companies, MDP, they're struggling to buy land. These are companies with 200, 300, 400 crores of turnover. They're finding it impossible to buy land in Maharashtra or Gujarat at an affordable price. I mean, obviously, if you kill yourself paying over the odds, your return on capital on the project will be diminished. On the other hand, I know of a prominent Japanese multinational, large automaker. They've called the right people in Delhi, and they were given a massive plot of land in Aurangabad to build their first global factory in 10 years. This is a major Japanese auto manufacturer. They haven't built a factory anywhere in the world for 10 years. They see India as such a promising export hub. They're building a massive factory in Aurangabad for which they've been given a massive plot of land, so large that they managed to even get low-cost land for their ancillary suppliers as well. So that's the challenge in our country, that supply-side problems kick in, and that allows bigger companies who know which phone number to call to swing policy in their favor, and it condemns us to these economic vicissitudes, these cycles, which obviously people like us try to make money from by timing, but not everybody can do that, which means that smaller companies, the SME, has a tough time fueling the Indian growth engine. So if we do what we've done in the last 30 years, 7% per annum dollar growth in per capita, we'll be there and thereabouts MDP on Viksit Bharat. But if we can reduce the amplitude of these cyclical fluctuations by strengthening our supply side, which is legal reform, reducing red tape and bureaucracy, we'll get there. We'll get to Viksit Bharat potentially quicker than even 2045.
Thank you. Next, Finance Minister, please come online.
In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas focusing on Garib, youth, Annadata and Nari, spurring agricultural growth and productivity, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy and innovation, securing energy supplies, promoting exports and nurturing innovation.
So these are the budget priorities: zero poverty, very good; 100% good quality school education, we all live in hope; access to high quality, affordable, comprehensive healthcare, motherhood statement; 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment, we don't know what that means; 70% women in economic activity, that's very good, we want 100% women in economic activity, men should take a break; farmers making our country the food basket of the world, yes, they have to work very hard. Now, this is a very specific question. We spoke about Viksit Bharat. Does the budget priorities aid India to become Viksit Bharat much later? Is it going the budget in the right direction? Now, Naganand, I'll go with Naganand. It's very specific to this budget.
And the budget is a exercise by which they're trying to, it's like one cook. He has to make in half an hour Thai food, Korean food, Gujarati food, Maharashtrian food, South Indian food, idli, dosa, hot, everything has to be given in one plate, and the time given to him in MasterChef is 15 minutes. Obviously, he's not going to succeed. So when the budget has so many things in it, it's difficult. I mean, money is not everything. You see, money is important, no doubt. But when you have goals like this, I think it's good to have a goal. You should have an ideal. But to what extent the budget is going to support that is something. I'll give you an example. School education. Now the survey shows that but for the court intervention where the court made an order that every school in Karnataka must have a Shauchalay. That is a must. And they really cracked the whip, and that's how it got done. But how many schools have a single teacher? And how many schools have students who are just Namka Vaste students? What have they done about it? Again, I'm going back to a village which is only 30 miles away from here. We have 2 schools there. The buildings in the school have not been built by government. It was built by benefactors from the village and some family members and some industrialists. That building is not maintained. And so the principal and others come back to us and say, sir, we need to maintain something, please help. What is the government doing about it? It's okay, and they're reducing the budget for education. So how can you achieve 100% good quality school education? And what have you done about people who are working in the construction industry? It's so heart-rending for me. Every time you pass through a big building under construction, you have about 10 children playing there. They're all children of people who are working there. And there is nothing done for them, absolutely nothing. So unless you do an overall plan, join hands with the state, You cannot achieve this. Now, like this, you can have all sorts of plans. We have a hospital in the village, but there's a doctor who comes there once in 3 days. What's the use of a hospital with the doctor not being there? So these are endemic problems which have to be tackled at the grassroots level, you know. That's the only way in which we can do. Whatever amount of money you spend is really not the solution. We need the will and the cooperation of the people. That's important. Without that, it's not possible.
Dr. Rao?
Well, I think every budget has a lot of rhetorics. And possibly the finance ministers always think that budget is a kalpaviksha or a kamadhenu. You can't. First of all, budget is only a small part of the economic activity. More than that, union government budget in terms of the expenditure is only about 1/3, and 2/3 has to come from the states. 85% of the spending on education and healthcare comes from the state budgets. In spite of your centrally sponsored schemes and what have you. So obviously, I don't think I take this as very serious. I mean, this is all right for selling, you know, so long as people are willing to believe it. But the fact of the matter is, you have a private sector. Obviously, you have to take into note of the private sector. Budget can only give some bit of a signaling. But much of it has to happen at the state level. Even the reform that I talked about earlier, I mean, apart from the private sector, the states have a very important role to play. So, I mean, this zero poverty thing will go on, you know, we will go on repeating it, long live poverty. And then we will have 100% good. It's only the last week that SR came out with the, you know, sort of their survey results. And class 5 students are not able to, there are only about 20 to 25% of the people are able to read class 3, you know, sort of textbooks. And healthcare, it's, you know, out-of-pocket expenditure, if you see, is 5 times the expenditure that the government does. 100% skilled labor, we wish it happens, but quite a lot of the work will have to be done by the states. And obviously, they are not talking about the apprentice scheme that they introduced last year. What happened to that? So I really don't think that this should be taken very seriously. And you know, I mean, you know, in fact, I've been analyzing budgets after budgets, and in every budget you have certain amount of rhetorics, and this is one of them.
Saurabh, does the budget take the Viksit Bharat vision forward?
So I think the financial part we addressed, MDP. I think we'll, with a little bit of reform, we'll hopefully get there and thereabouts. But I think I'll be even more provocative, inspired by Dr. Govinda Rao. I'll be even more provocative. I think we have a fundamental challenge in India where the political class, and I'm not referring to any one political party, I think across the political plots, they're confused about whether they're capitalists or socialists. So we make these sorts of socialist promises. So let's take education, right? Education is the best example. In a capitalist economy, we have a socialist education system. And the result of that is, whether it is graduates or school children, primary school children, high school children, graduates, very few of them have the skills to actually operate in the modern economy, whether it's a factory or a IT services job, right? And the reason, I mean, obviously, empathizing with the politicians, they can't possibly be capitalists when it comes to election time, because votes lie in pretending to be socialists. But the result of that is our health and education expenditure itself is, as a percentage of GDP, is modest compared to, say, other countries in our neighborhood, say Bangladesh or Sri Lanka actually ends up spending more on health and education as a percentage of GDP than us. But whatever little we spend, the result of that is also modest at best, right? So as Dr. Rao is mentioning, the ASER results come out on education. Supposedly, Dr. Rao, 92% of Indians are now going to school. But looking at, say, Pratham is an NGO. Pratham does some surveys of are our school children able to do maths, are they able to read, the results are pretty disappointing. Last year, 90% of Indian graduates couldn't get a job because the graduates that are coming out are not really employable. So challenges here, and again, just to underscore how confused our politicians are on this, in the July 24 budget, there was an internship scheme that was launched. I think the FM said 5,000 graduates, 5,000 interns have to be hired by the top 500 companies. I didn't hear any mention of that scheme in this budget. Ayushman Bharat, I thought was a good scheme, right? I still think it's a good scheme. Ayushman Bharat says, you're a poor person, here's some entitlement card, basically insurance, one of the world's lowest cost health insurance programs. Smart program, but I've met dozens of hospitals who treat Ayushman patients, but they don't get paid by the government, so they're giving up on, the hospitals are giving up on Ayushman Bharat, and strangely, I didn't hear any mention of Ayushman Bharat in this budget. I thought Ayushman Bharat was a clever way for the government to say the hospital will be provided by the private sector, we will give you some money. So I think these pronouncements are a challenge of, in a way, the legacy of the people who ran India in the years after independences. They have left a generation of politicians, they've left them to pay lip service to socialism in what is a profoundly capitalist economy now.
But Saurabh, one report came on, Dr. Rao will know, by that ADM, that Association Democratic Reform, that Karnataka MLAs are the richest in the country in terms of net worth.
One of the areas of focus of the finance minister was agriculture. We have to become the food basket of this world itself. We will see what the finance minister has to say on agriculture, therefore.
Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, developing agri-districts program. Motivated by the success of the aspirational district program, our government will undertake a Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana in partnership with states. Through the convergence of existing schemes and specialized measures, the program will cover 100 districts with low productivity, moderate crop intensity, and below average credit parameters. It aims to 1. Enhance agricultural productivity, 2. Adopt crop diversification and sustainable agricultural practices, 3. Augment post-harvest storage at the panchayat and block level, 4. Improve irrigation facilities, and 5. Facilitate availability of long-term and short-term credit. This program is likely to help 1.7 crore farmers.
We have some data here. Dhanya. Dhanya is wealth, Dhanya is food. Krishi Yojana. This is the underlying statement of the finance minister, and we are supposed to be aiming at becoming the food basket of the world. Some data is interesting here, that in terms of food grain production, we are the second largest in the world. Milk production, we are the largest in the world. Cotton, we are the second largest in the world. Horticulture, we are the second largest again. Sugar production, we are the largest. Spices, we are the largest in the world. Crop land, that is under cultivation, we are the largest in the world. Livestock, we have the largest in the world. We have all the type of crops, all the type of lands, all the type of climates to be enabled to have all type of crops being grown here. So major producer of agriculture, agrochemicals, tea, cashew, largest exporter of cereal products, all 15 major climates in the world, 46 of the 60 soil types in the world are available in this country, largest manufacturer of farm equipments, proximity to food importing nations. The statistics are very wonderful. But then we talk about the same aspects every year. FM talks about the productivity, talks about farmers' income, talks about the subsidies available to the farmers concerned. In this background, therefore, the question therefore is for Mr. Govinda. Next slide. You also look at the gross value of the crop versus non-crop. Look at the sectors concerned. Crops, vegetables, condiments, drugs, narcotics, livestock, forestry, fishing and aquaculture. Now, cereals as a percentage of agriculture is 15%. Crops as a percentage of agriculture is now coming up to about 33% now. In this background, therefore, in this data of this statistics concerned, we therefore also have to look at government to take a Prime Minister Dhanya Dhana Krishi Yojana in partnership with states. This will cover 100 districts. This is what the Finance Minister made a mention in this speech. A multi-sectoral rural prosperity and resilience program to be launched to implement the national mission for edible oil seeds, launch a 6-year mission for Atmanirbharta in pulses, loan limits for Kisan credit cards to be enhanced, comprehensive program for vegetable and fruits to be launched. Next. Budget allocations for pre-agriculture schemes have declined. This is extremely important. No mention of legalized minimum support. This is also extremely important as a statement concerned. Now, as you are mentioning that agriculture has about 4% of the growth, it's contributing about 16% of the GDP. It's having about 46% of the population being employed. Statistics are pretty large. But then in the light of all of this concern now, is the budget strategy adequate to improve agricultural productivity? This is a statement that is being made year on year by every finance minister that we are going to do something. Although the economic survey makes a mention that agriculture growth has been good, the agricultural sector has been quite resilient. We have been growing at 5% per annum. This is a very good growth rate. But how can India's farmers' income from non-MSP agricultural products increase? Can India become the food basket of the world? Mr. Govinda.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, some of these things will have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Now, agriculture is essentially a state subject in the constitution. So much of the spending will have to be done by the states. Obviously, union government cannot really, doesn't really increase its allocation to agriculture. But then the statements can always be made. And then possibly these 100 aspirational districts will be chosen in collaboration with the states, and some symbolic things will be done. The problem, as I said, is that you see, when you have 15% of GDP generated by 43% of the people, 43, 42, 4% of the people, you can't really, and if you see your numbers, the share of crop, sort of food grains in the total listing has remained more or less stagnant. That's because you have an MSP on the one hand. On the other, you don't charge any price for your water or electricity. People, go into water-intensive crops. There is no incentive for them to move over, to change the cropping pattern. Horticulture, floriculture, and various other, things, they don't move in. And there is a excessive, there is a use of unbalanced fertilizers. And obviously soil salinity has increased. And then we are quite satisfied with 4% growth of agriculture, because we think that 4% growth is agriculture. And with this, if we want to become a food basket of the world, I am afraid that is not going to happen.
These are the aspects from the agricultural side. Saurabh, from the aspect of price discovery, from the aspect of market efficiency, from the aspect of R&D in agriculture, what do you have to suggest?
So look, I've made a call as an investor. Let's see whether it works out. So the call I'm making, right, and we've made some investments basis this, is at some stage in between now and the next elections, this government will make a call that there are more votes to be had in getting this farmer a fair price for the crop than there are votes to be had in helping the middle class get cheap food grains. Right? That's the core tension at the heart of our agricultural policy. The government doesn't quite know whether they're looking after the farmer. If you want to look after the farmer and you give them better prices, you're more likely, Khincha sir, to be able to become the food basket of the world. After all, the farmer is also a commercial agent, and he responds to free market signals for better prices for crops, right? But historically, India has not quite seen it that way. Historically, India has said, you the farmer, we will if food prices go up, we will allow imports to come in and push prices down. And Dr. Rao, I think you've probably seen this for longer than I have. When food prices go up, we allow imports to come in to push the prices down. And if local prices, if world prices escalate, we block exports. So the farmer gets hit both ways, right? He's not allowed to get a fair price. In return, the folks in this room, people like us get cheaper food grains. The Maharashtra farmer in Asalgaon notwithstanding, right? We get cheaper food grains. I think some stage in the next 4 years, the government will make a call. Let the farmer get price discovery, which means slightly more expensive, perhaps meaningfully more expensive food for us. But I think in parallel, the government will also say, since food is not really 46% of your and my CPI basket, right? Food is not really 46% of your and my CPI basket. The government will change the CPI maths, bring food ka weight down, let the food prices go up, let the farmer get a better deal, right? And as a result of that, we've started investing over the last 12 months in agro-commodities and the supply chain which feeds the farmer. If my sort of vision comes through Khincha Sahab, I think there is every reason to believe that the Indian farmer has natural resources and commercial acumen to make us the breadbasket of the world. But at some level, at the highest levels actually, a political call has to be made on, are we growing crops to feed people at a low price, or are we growing crops to give the farmer a good livelihood?
We have 46% in agriculture, 46% in the MSME. We'll therefore move on to MSME, again a very critical sector for the India's economy. Next, therefore.
Now I move to MSMEs as the second engine, which encompasses manufacturing and services with a focus on MSMEs numbering 5.7 crores. Currently, over 1 crore registered MSMEs, employing 7.5 crore people and generating 36% of our manufacturing, have come together to position India as a global manufacturing hub. With their quality products, these MSMEs are responsible for 45% of our exports. To help them achieve higher efficiencies of scale, technological upgradation, and better access to capital, the investment and turnover limits for classification of all MSMEs will be enhanced to 2.5 and 2 times respectively. This will give them the confidence to grow and generate employment for our youth.
Naganand, this is a question for you. MSME helps entrepreneurship. It also has the character of having the ability to help somebody in business with low capital cost. It's able to employ a huge number of people. About 23 crore people are being employed in the industry, rightly or directly or indirectly. And therefore, the background concern, we are now having a revision in the classification of MSME. All those turnover ratio and the investment ratio are being enhanced by 2.5 times for you to therefore continue to be called as a micro or medium or a small enterprise. Credit guarantee cover to be enhanced. Now this is interesting. The economic survey says about 11.65 lakh guarantees have been given, totaling to about more than 1 lakh crores in terms of guarantees being extended. So we are also having the limits therefore in terms of credit guarantees to be enhanced now. Customized credit cards with a 5 lakh limit for micro enterprises registered on Udyam portal. Udyam portal has has about 2.39 micro enterprises being registered, entitled for priority sector lending itself. New 10,000 crores fund for startups is going to be there. 2 crore loan schemes during the next 5 years. Set up a national manufacturing mission covering small, medium and large industries for furthering Make in India. Next. The government is continuing its support to the MSME sector in the second consecutive budget. With this background, Naganand, your reactions to this. Do the budget initiatives for MSME make it more resilient, competitive, efficient? Do these measures ensure adequate lending to MSMEs which are starved of credit? What more needs to be done to make the MSMEs grow?
I think the government has been taking steps slowly but surely. The idea is that this is a sector where they need some hand-holding. And without hand-holding, it is not possible for these MSMEs to actually survive, thrive, and do what they're supposed to do. If you look at it at a macro level, I think the steps that have been taken are very good. But when you come down to the micro level, that is where the problem arises. Now, an MSME, suddenly one fine day, there'll be an electrical inspector who comes and cuts off his power supply to say your meter is not functioning properly, you have not paid electricity, so I'm cutting it off. Now, to get this resolved, it will take him minimum 5 to 6 months. Now, what is going to happen to this unit in those 5 months, you can imagine. The second thing is technology. How do they access technology? See, today manufacturing technologies are getting more and more sophisticated. So when it is getting more sophisticated, what kind of manpower are they going to employ? Will somebody who's got some super qualification in an IIT come and work for MSME? Or will he say, I would rather prefer to be in Bandra area of Mumbai, advising somebody. So the problem of getting skilled people to assist them is very, very important. I remember many years ago, they set up a small consulting outfit in the government of Karnataka called TechSoc. The object of TechSoc was to have a think tank of technocrats there who are going to help MSMEs whenever the need arises. But unless some hand-holding like that is done in terms of technology, equipment, then the sophisticated manufacturing technologies that is then, and finally now everybody's talking about AI. What is AI going to do in MSME sector? I think this is where the cutting edge technology has to percolate to them. Only if they are able to achieve that, MSME is going to be a success. Unless that happens, there'll be a slip between the cup and the lip.
Professor Govinda, in some issue, I may ask only one or two of the panelists concerned, but if other panelists have something to add, please don't hesitate to add something.
It's over a period of time we have acquired
into the mic.
Over a period of time we have acquired this thing called small is always beautiful. Unfortunately, small is not. Thankfully, in this, they have at least increased the norms for considering small. To 2.5 times the investment and then 2 times the turnover. But even that is not enough. This is the legacy of the planned era, where small-scale industry was the only one that was allowed to do what it wanted. And then we went on, pampering the small-scale industry. And then you have, if you really look at the situation today, according to the numbers available, 75% of the employees in the small-scale sector are in units with less than 20 workers. Now, that's mainly because of your labor laws. Although the labor codes have been brought down to 4, most states have not implemented them. Where they have implemented, the things have been better. But then labor laws continue to be an issue. And of course, many of them have flouted it by simply saying that, taking, contract labor. Anyway, there is another number which I will put it across. That is from the OECD survey, which says that 2/3 of the employees in the small-scale sector have an education level of less than higher secondary. Now, you have to do it. You don't talk about skilling. If you are talking about the productivity, if you are talking about skilling of the people, there's a whole lot of things that need to be done. They talk about lots of employment generated, talk about export generated. But all these are done in units which are capital intensive, not in small-scale units which are labor intensive. Labor intensive industrialization requires a lot more of this thing, and obviously that's one of the major things, and no politician is willing to talk about sort of relaxing the labor laws and increasing the size, because we always consider small is beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, now we go to the next topic, human resources and investment. Finance Minister.
Now I move to investment as the third engine, which encompasses investing in people, investing in the economy, and investing in innovation. 50,000 Atal Tinkering Labs will be set up in government schools in the next 5 years to cultivate the spirit of curiosity and innovation and foster a scientific temper among young minds. Broadband connectivity to government secondary schools and PHCs. Broadband connectivity will be provided to all government secondary schools and primary health centers in rural areas under the BharatNet project.
Now it's very interesting, the language of the finance minister. There was a prime minister who came from the south of India. He was a brilliant man. When he went for a press conference, the press asked whatever question they wanted. He answered whatever he wanted, and there was a gap between the two. Both were happy. I asked the question, I answered everything, and he got his message across. Now between what the statement says in the budget and what they do, we see a similar gap. What are they doing? Center of Excellence in AI. Without saying AI in every sentence today for the next 3 months, you cannot leave. Even ICAI has become ICAI. I was in Delhi giving a talk, ICAI. Everybody said AI, AI, AI. What is AI? Nobody still understands what is AI. Now you can't even buy 1,000 GPUs with 500 crores. One GPU cost $150,000, right, Sid? Second, 50,000 Atal tinkering tabs. Very nice, they can tinker. Broadband connectivity, heard it for 15 years. National Center of Excellence for Skilling, very good. PM Samidhi, is it going to transform 1 billion people? Social Security Scheme for welfare of online platform workers. Nutrition proposed to students. Okay, next. Now let us see the statement of education. Schools, 14 lakh schools, 1 crore teachers, 248 crore students. There are more students in a school than the population of most countries in the world. And if you look at primary, almost every child is in school. Upper, yes. Elementary, 1 to 8, this is fantastic. Secondary, there's 9 to 10, only 80%. 100 kids come in class 1, 80 pass. This official statistics on a survey. This is very good. So that ASA survey is only for rural children in few districts. Please, which is not for India. We got to be careful. They mislead because they have to raise a lot of money. And if you don't talk about poverty and victimhood, you will not get money. So everybody says India. It is not India. 80% of children complete class 10. Out of 80%, maybe 70% pass and get a degree. And to pass 35%, you must know a little bit of maths. 2 plus 2, you must know by 10th standard, right? But higher secondary is the problem. 57% of children are in higher secondary. And you'll be very surprised. Our great state of Karnataka is still at this percentage. We are not high. Kerala is 80%. Karnataka is 57, 60%. We must invest more in class 11 and 12. We are not investing. And we are all talking about IT, IT, IT. Out of 25 lakh people working in IT in Bangalore, only 11 lakh are Kannadigas, born here, finished class 10. People have come from outside, which is very good. But we must educate our own children. There are a lot of jobs available. Look at college. 4.32 crore young people. 1 crore graduate every year. Gross enrollment rate 18 to 23, 28.4. Females are graduating more. It's fantastic. We need to give some talia. And in America, 56% of graduates are women. What happens to the poor men? I remember with Dr. Ramdas Pai in Manipal, I told him, girls are 60% of the class. Please give reservation for men. What do the poor men do if they don't become doctors? If girls become 75%, where is the role for men? We need male doctors also, no? Am I right, Dr. Rao? Because women drop out 30% in 10 years because of various reasons. So, number of graduates, 107 lakh. Number of teachers, 16. Now, this is what next. So, Saurabh, is the government doing enough to develop human capital? Society is about people. People have to get skilled, educated, 21st century. Are you investing adequately in higher education? 60%, 67% of children are in private colleges. Private, all right? And they're doing much better. And they pay heavy fees. To get a medical seat in the private sector, 1 crore. Who can afford 1 crore? 1 crore. And now, will India reap the demographic dividend? Are these measures sufficient to generate well-paying jobs in the future in the country? Are we doing enough on human capital?
Yeah, I think this one is probably of all the tough questions that Khincha sir and Mohandas Paiji have posed for, this is probably the easiest. I don't think too many of the people getting educated on an education system are going to get jobs. Every factory that I visit, every factory is highly automated, highly robotized. I think one of the slides we saw that India is the largest producer of milk in the world. So I visited the largest ice cream factory in the world. It's around 2 hours north of Hyderabad, the world's largest ice cream factory. Cleaning machineries, everything robotized. All that is required is the driver has to push the truck to a certain place, robot download the milk, right? No pun intended, the robot downloads the milk, robot makes the ice cream. The only jobs MDP in that colossal ice cream factory, which supplies actually a big part of your ice cream in this state comes from that big factory north of Hyderabad. The only jobs in that factory are putting the ice cream in boxes and putting a seal on it, and that jobs are mostly done by women, right? And that's the story in most factories I visit. 2 months ago, some foreign investors came to Bangalore with me. They met MDP. Then we took them to Chennai. There they saw the Royal Enfield factory, state-of-the-art factory making bullet motorcycles. 80% work done by robots. Robots incredibly made in India. Made in India robots, made by engineers from our country. Half the price of German robots, high-quality robots. Foreign investors were stunned. They said this is world-class manufacturing.
Who is making the robots? Which company?
So these are local firms around Chennai.
Not listed companies.
Not listed, yeah. It's a very interesting.
That's why.
Small listed companies, small unlisted companies. But Royal Enfield has become a world-class exporter of motorbikes. But hardly any people in the factory. Few people that were women. So I think massive challenge coming towards us. I won't get into AI because AI, the scale of the job creation challenge that AI will pose is unknown. Given that our education system, even when it works, is based on rote learning, a lot of what is successfully taught in our schools is increasingly becoming irrelevant by the time it gets to the factories. And therefore, the question that I keep asking myself is, can quick commerce, can Swiggy, Zomato, quick commerce, Blinkit, can they create jobs at a sufficient enough pace to employ the millions, I think 10 million graduates is coming out.
All the graduates to become delivery boys, to deliver Swiggy.
Boys, girls as well, right?
Girls also.
Right.
Okay.
So good news is because labor is cheap in our country, I've seen this in our office, the 25-year-olds, if they feel like, say, playing chess or Ludo, they press the button there, 5 minutes later, chess board arrives. Recently, a colleague of mine landed in Delhi with me. He wasn't wearing socks. So I said, how can you go to see the government without socks? He ordered socks on quick commerce. Socks landed up there. Because labor is cheap in our country, that's one way to deal with labor. So if the free market works, increasingly our future kids will become quick commerce. You also need slightly more smarter people to train bots. Just because AI will come doesn't mean the bot can train itself. So we'll need bot trainers. There's also colossal dark web. So I learned recently I was writing a book on this. The world's largest users of the dark web are Indians. But thankfully also the biggest coders and intermediaries in the dark web are also Indians. They get paid in crypto, so they are able to avoid income tax because they get paid in crypto. But jokes apart, we'll need the entrepreneurial ecosystem to fire in full blast to employ, I think 20 million people, 10 million graduates, 10 million class 12 pass outs, 20 million people a year. Our conventional factory ecosystem or office ecosystem will not take because that's incredibly automated now. And those factory owners don't want labor. They want robots so that they can make more money with fewer people.
Naganand?
I think I'll give you an example. There's a college in Bangalore, Lakshmi Ammani College. We have about nearly 4,000 girls studying there. 70% of the girls, it's an all women's college, 70% of the girls studying there come from first generation learners.
Even now?
Now also.
After 75 years
Yeah.
of constitution?
Yes. They're street vendors, cooks, drivers, you name it. And, the confidence with which they come to college. But the sad thing that we feel is at the end of all this effort that they make and do this, what do they do next? Now you see the education system, the new education policy, the state education policy, they've created a big mess about it. So the national education policy was not accepted by our state, and so we have a state education policy. Now, neither of these policies talk about how you're going to skill people. What does a person do after he finishes a BSc with physics, chemistry, mathematics? Is there some skill that is going to get into them before they finish? Now, we have courses for the BCom students who take CA foundation courses. They have a separate add-on course for that. We have secretarial course, English speaking courses. What I'm saying is that the education system is not thinking of how to equip these people with some skill which they're going to be useful for them as soon as they get out. A simple thing like we have a great shortage of stenographers. Not many people want to now learn shorthand and come as stenographers. It's a fantastic market, but there is no educational system. If you are studying BA, there is no add-on course that you can do to do shorthand, Kannada or English, and you'll get a job immediately. But the thing is, the education system is not looking at the whole thing. So what's the use of having any number of colleges and funding all of them? See, there are some elite institutions, like you have the IITs, the IIMs, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. These are elite institutions. How many people, I mean, these are for super specialists that go there. But what happens to the ordinary man in the street? Again, I go back to my village. There's a Muslim family there, right? The guy had a heart attack and he was treated and whatever happened, and he became all right. He had 2 sons. Now, with due apologies, most Muslim families, they don't believe in educating their children. So I've been pushing him. I said, no, your kids should learn something. They should learn a skill. So thanks to all this, both the boys, they went and took some courses in welding and things like that. Both are well employed and they don't have a school graduation or a college graduation. So what's the use of if I forced him to go through a college, what would they do? He says, yes, sir, I will put him in college. After BSc, what is he going to do? Nothing. He will not be useful for anything. So the focus on the education system, you must always have formal education. You must have good quality education. You always need professors like Professor Govinda. Like, you can't expect him to learn some skill and start doing something, but we need him for his thinking capacity, for what he does for the country, for how he gives you directions. So you need good lawyers, you need fantastic chartered accountants, like the 2 gentlemen sitting on the other side. That is important. But for the Aam Aadmi, for the rest of the community, the education system has to really revamp itself, and there has to be a complete relook. I think this is only lip service what they're doing, demographic dividend.
Any comments, Doc?
Well, a lot can be said about it, but I won't. I'll be very brief. At the end of the day, as Naganand said, through education, you need to, in this mass education, you need to equip them, empower them with ability to get employed. Employability is the most important thing. And one of the things that has been happening in recent times, both at the state and the central level, there is a lot of budget cut again on education. Most of the universities, I have been visiting quite a few universities, particularly after I wrote that book on public finance, they wanted me to go and talk about it. Now, there are no regular teachers. College teachers are being invited to come and take lectures in the classes, in the universities.
Public or private?
No, and in fact, there are no professors.
No, in public or private universities?
No, I am talking about public.
Okay.
And unfortunately, all these things we presume that the private sector doesn't exist.
That
That's
takes
an
more.
unfortunate part of it.
Yeah.
But the private sector actually has been doing a much
Better job.
much greater job in this particular thing. But then, as I said, private sector is not a philanthropic entity. Only the people who can afford to get that will, go there will get that. But generally speaking, now, Paulo Freire, the Latin American educationist, once talked about the education in third world countries. He said it is a knowledge contained in the textbook of the teacher is passed on to the notebook of the student through the process of chalkwork without entering into the mind of either. Now this is precisely what is happening here. The teachers don't know what they're teaching. I'm talking about public universities. And the students basically write something, that some notes are there, and they pass, and then they don't know what to do. There is another issue to this. There is a demographic delay. Quite a lot of the things has to happen in places like Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Orissa. Now, I mean, the things are bad enough, but things are very bad in these places.
So we are better than them. But let me give some data.
No,
because,
in the kingdom of the
you must
blind,
talk to a chief
in
minister.
the kingdom of the blind, one-eyed
One-eyed
man is the king.
No, but let me give some data. Even in South India, Tamil Nadu has 49% GER. Karnataka is 36.1. Lowest in the South India compared to
Absolutely.
Telangana, Andhra,
Absolutely.
Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. We are the lowest. And we are the richest state in India.
No, I know. No, we are not the richest. Telangana is higher than us. but
Slightly higher.
Slightly higher. But apart from that, you take out, as I mentioned to
Take
you,
out Bangalore.
in a private conversation I mentioned to you, you take out Bangalore,
Mysore.
South Canara, Udupi and Chikmagalur, and there is not much that's happening elsewhere.
He just came back from Kalburgi and is a bit depressed. You must forgive him. So he's become a bit negative. He's just depressed.
The funny part is, I told this in the Kalburgi, in the meeting in the Kalburgi, that you see, they all keep crying, saying that we are backward, and we are backward. And I said, you have a university. Has any person from the university written a very analytical article saying that why there is backwardness?
No.
No. Because that's not necessary, because it's not required for his job.
Yeah.
That's where I stand.
Okay. Now, Saurabh, look, everybody is getting a bit disheartened by, people saying this and that. Before we finish, you got to tell them where to invest, what are the areas that are going to grow, okay? Please. And you don't...
So just quickly on that, I think this is an area where lots of money can be made. This is the venture capital center of the country. I think whoever cracks this problem, right? Because remember, core problem, socialist education system in a capitalist economy. That simply, to expect socialists to do vocational education doesn't work, right? They have no incentive. So some capitalist in this room potentially will crack this and make billions of dollars from it.
Okay. Now we'll go to the next one. Finance Minister. Be more optimistic.
Public-private partnership in infrastructure. Each infrastructure-related ministry will come up with a 3-year pipeline of projects that can be implemented in PPP mode. States will also be encouraged to do so and can seek support from the India Infrastructure Project Development Fund, which is a scheme to prepare PPP proposals. Support to states for infrastructure. An outlay of 1.5 lakh crore is proposed for the 50-year interest-free loans to states for capital expenditure and incentives for reforms. Building on the success of the first asset monetization plan announced in 2021, the second plan for 2025 to 30 will be launched to plow back capital of 10 lakh crore in new projects. Regulatory and fiscal measures will be fine-tuned to support the plan.
Okay, now some positive news. India is doing well. We are the 5th largest manufacturing power in the world. Look at the data. A lot of things to be proud of India. We'll overtake Japan. Japan will take some time. With 818 billion, India is 455, right? But we are the 5th. 5th is not bad. And we will grow faster than South Korea. So all of the small countries say they're more industrialized than us, but we produce more than them. Please remember this data, okay? Never let anybody beat you down. Next. We are underspending on infrastructure. This is an old slide which said India needs to spend 6.9% of GDP. Now we're spending 4.7. Look at China. China spent 8.5% of GDP when they need to spend 6.4. They got fantastic infrastructure. Some of it is not being used now. But whatever it is, they're much ahead of anybody. They invest in infrastructure much ahead of all other countries. Next. And look at the expenditure on infrastructure of the years. This government has done well. We spend about 2,80,000 crores. About 11 lakh crores at 12 lakh crores. Railways, roadways, aviation. Aviation is less. Of course, railways and roadways have not grown the last 3 years. Net of inflation, I think, has become negative. But the problem today, Dr. Rao, is They're not able to spend the money. There's no spending capacity. The problem with India is we lack the capacity to invest more. Even if you pump money, you can't invest more, you'll do Swaham. Just to show the results, right, Naganand? Next. And look at this. We are a strong industrial base, 1 billion tons of coal, second largest in the world. China is about 3 billion. Iron ore, 290, third largest. Aviation, third largest. And railways, fourth largest. Roadways, second largest. Ports, maybe among five. Renewable energy, fourth, going to the third. Textile, second largest after China. We've done well. We're a big industrial power. The pricing is low. Next. And even in steel, second largest, 148. This year will be 155. By 2030, we'll go to 300 million tons of capacity. Our own HDK, Kumaraswamy, is going around and giving money and investing everywhere. Some of it will go down the tube like in Andhra Pradesh, hopefully not. Cement, second largest. China is 2.2 billion. China's steel is about 1.2 billion. We're second largest in the world. And two-wheelers, largest. This year will be 21 million. Four-wheelers, third largest. Air of Japan. Construction, second largest. And Bangalore consumes 100 million square feet of space every year. And if somebody says there's a tariff card at 75 rupees per square foot for 100 million, that's about 750 crores. I don't want to make further comments. You'll be shocked at the amount of money that's being made in Bangalore through tariff cards, Dr. Rao. Electricity production, wireless phone, second largest. Next. So what do they say? 1.5 lakh crores, 50-year interest-free loans. These 50-year interest-free loans are very good because the person who gives the loan, the person who takes the loan is not going to be around in 50 years anyway. In fact, Dr. Rao, I went to the PMO many years back and told the Principal Secretary PM, you must ask Prime Minister Modi to talk to Abe-san, Prime Minister of Japan, ask for $500 billion of 50-year loans to build infrastructure into India. And they will give because they got $14 trillion of savings. And I said, look, he said, no, it's too much. How can we do it? I said, Doc, don't worry. The person who gives money, person who takes money is not going to be around. Just take the money and invest. Monetization plan, urban challenge fund. First time we got an urban challenge fund. Urbanization is important because urbanization is concentration of human activity. Concentration of human activity creates specialization. Specialization increases productivity and productivity increases income. That's what Kalam mantra. Now, nuclear reactor, small nuclear reactor, we're going to put up maritime fund, etc. So a lot of good things are happening in the economy. Next. Shipbuilding, we're going to finally do. Modified Udan scheme so people can fly more. We want Hawaii Chapel to Udan. Something is there, no? Hawaii Chapel. Special window for affordable mid-housing. There's electricity distribution that's been done for 25 years. Develop top 50 tourist destination. Next. Now, this for Saurabh. Are we finally focusing on urban centers, engines of growth? In the last budget, 3.4% of GDP for capital. Is it enough? And then how do we access long-term, low-cost, overseas capital to fund infrastructure?
So look, I think 10 trillion rupees or 10 trillion rupees is probably the limit we can spend. Whenever I think the government will allocate more than 10 trillion, which is what they've done for F26, I simply don't see us having the execution capacity. In fact, a decade ago when the current government had come to power, somebody very senior had told me that it's very difficult to find contractors who will do work for you without stealing money. A decade in, a little bit has changed. I think marginally better situation in terms of contractors who will do a decent job without stealing money. But I think execution challenges, let's call them execution challenges, are severe. And 10 trillion remains, I think, the limit of what we can hit. I think an even bigger challenge is where does the 10 trillion get allocated is a little bit of a mystery to me, because if that 10 trillion had been allocated well, we would have expected to see ships going quicker through ports, turnaround times at ports improving, our exports improving on the back of that. That data is patchy. Our airports are clearly better.
But Adani Ports is doing very well. They're world class.
So there are a few ports which are private sector owned, which are meaningfully better. But in the totality of our turnaround times on ships, we don't see that. Because highway network has doubled in the last decade, working capital cycle for well-managed companies are down by around 20 to 30 days a year. So well-managed companies have used the highway networks well. Clearly the airport network doubling has helped us. Domestic tourism has taken off. We've invested in a luggage manufacturer, suitcase manufacturer, when they post numbers quarter after quarter, it's barely believable how many suitcases are selling in the country, because Indians are traveling like mad. In fact, I can't fully understand where people are going so much. Hotels are full. Hotel profit margins are through the roof. Suitcase manufacturers are making money. There's one unlisted suitcase manufacturer in your city. They're also booming. There's a friend of mine who's also set up an unlisted suitcase company in Bombay. He's hoping to IPO it 2 years hence and get rich. So very interesting. We've doubled the road network. I think we have pentupled domestic passenger travel in 10 years. Pentupled. Right? So hotels and luggage manufacturers are beneficiaries. The industrial piece, however, is a little patchier to gauge in terms of exports and imports. And then execution challenges. I'm happy to, if you guys let me come back next year, I guarantee you that next year when we sit here, there is no way that 11.2 trillion that has been allocated for infrastructure would have been spent. We would have capped out at 10 trillion. That's a execution challenge. But urban development, Bombay today, clearly meaningfully better city than 10 years ago. Hyderabad also, you guys might not appreciate my saying so, but Hyderabad today, meaningfully better city in terms of infrastructure than 10 years ago. Delhi, I would say 50-50, the pollution is the challenge, but road infrastructure in Delhi, urban infrastructure, metro, etc., pretty high class. Even smaller cities, Nagpur, Indore, Coimbatore, they've also meaningfully moved forward. Your city is a slight sort of aberration for whatever reason that I think you guys will know better than I will.
No, but here we don't have to go by traffic, we go by, what do you call it, by some fiber.
Okay, okay. So you're in a virtual economy.
Fiber goes faster than going by traffic. So
this is an intellectually developed city, so it's a digital city. So therefore, physical infrastructure is not a binding constraint.
Yeah.
So Bangalore apart, the rest of the country, urban infrastructure is better. And I think, I think credit to the folks in Delhi. I think this has taken some doing. A decade ago, if you had told me, so I'll put it another way. So there's a Canadian pension plan for whom we manage money. So their CIO came to see us ahead of giving us hopefully a little bit more money. So, we were taking him around Bombay, and the traffic is bad by Toronto standards. So I was apologizing. So I was showing him, look, certain metro line, we're building 7 metro lines. So this guy from Canada said that, look, don't apologize. You guys are building 7 metro lines. In Toronto, we haven't built 7 metro stations in the last 10 years. Right? So Bombay has developed remarkably, and by and large, the highway network and the airline network today, remarkable, right? What we have built. A lot to be proud of, and a lot that's benefited our lives. The port infrastructure and Bangalore, I think those are the 2 pieces if somebody could rectify.
Dr. Rao, before I go to the next point, one important question. You see, focus on urban centers. Now, we're going to have the census this year and next year, right? The census will lead to delimitation. Today's seats in parliament and the state legislature are based upon the 1991 census. Am I right? 91 census. Because 30 years it was frozen. 91, 2001, 2011, 2021. Frozen by Vajpayee, right? And then in 1991, urban areas were 21%, if I'm right. Now it could be 45, 46, including urban, semi-urban, because definition urban is right. So after the census, more seats in parliament will go to urban areas, state legislature go to urban areas. In Karnataka, 20% of seats will go to Bangalore, as against maybe 12% now. I think out of 228, 26 or 28. So do you think government is recognizing that political power is coming to urban areas and middle class, and this budget is showing more investment in urban areas?
I don't think they are thinking that far.
That is only 4 years, 3 years. Only 3 years.
No, I'm talking about, see, that much of a thinking. See, the only thing that goes on, at least in the southern part of the thing, is that, you see, because of the change in fertility, the number of seats will go up there more than here, and
that is true.
That's the only thing that they are bothered about. But unfortunate part of it is our, everything starts, our problem starts with lack of urban planning, and then urban investment. We never bothered about, urban investment requirements. There was this committee, Ishar Alwalia committee, where when I had to write a paper for her on urban governance and finance. Even urban governance, there is a major problem, because state government says that, my people will go and look after the urban area. Municipal commissioner has to be. Bombay cannot appoint a private sector municipal commissioner. He has to come from the government itself. That's the situation. Now, urban centers are the engines of growth. And if you really want the future tomorrow, you really need to have to spend money on urban infrastructure and finance. It's connectivity, it's everything. It's not just the public services, housing, connectivity, both this thing, and there's water, sewer, whole lot of things. There is also on this issue there is one other problem. We did talk about infrastructure and things. There is another major thing that is coming up. If you really have to go green, you need to phase out your thermal power plants. That's going to be a huge expenditure that will come through. And I don't know. And the other important thing that I want to say is, this has become a joke, talking about disinvestment, asset monetization and things. What are we doing with asset management? Why is it that still need to run commercial enterprises? Why is it that the government doesn't realize what its role is? That's the basic question that one has to pose.
Okay. Before the next question, one important data for you. Government of India and state government spend 9 lakh crore as subsidies. Central government 4 lakh crores and the states balance. Karnataka spends about 1 lakh crore, Tamil Nadu 1 lakh 42,000 crores, Maharashtra some 80,000 crores. 9 lakh crore as subsidies.
This is explicit.
Explicit.
Yeah, explicit. There are a whole lot of
all the money
subsidies.
you pay as taxes, and you're all hardworking people working 90 hours a day, earning money to pay taxes. You want Myra Bharat Mahan. 9 lakh crore is going as subsidies. Keep it in mind. Don't forget.
These slides are talking about infrastructure and industrial base being strong. We'll now, therefore, the background, look at the exports sector itself.
Engine. We will set up an export promotion mission with sectoral and ministerial targets driven jointly by the Ministries of Commerce, MSME, and Finance. It will facilitate easy access to export credit, cross-border factoring support, support to MSMEs to tackle non-tariff measures in overseas markets. A digital public infrastructure, Bharat Trade Net, for international trade will be set up as a unified platform for trade documentation and financing solutions. This will complement the Unified Logistics Interface Platform. The BTN will be aligned with international practices.
One of the earlier slides, one of the starting slides, it was mentioned that India's exports are $825 billion, imports are 909, where exports are increasing at 11% compounded annual rate of growth. Now we are looking at, therefore, exports the fourth engine. That's where we are looking at the economy doing well, with export as a premier point of focus of the government concern. And as the FM made a mention, to set up an export promotion mission with sectoral ministerial targets driven jointly by Ministry of Commerce, MSME and Finance, digital public infrastructure for international trade will be set up, national framework to be formulated as guidance to states for promoting GCCs, Global Capability Centers, facilitate upgradation of infrastructure and warehousing. These are broad statements concerned. In the light of all of this, question therefore today for us is, world over we are looking at geopolitical tensions. We are looking at uncertain periods of time. We are looking at wars happening. We are looking at tariff barriers coming about. We are looking at non-tariff situations concerned. And therefore, in the light of all of that, our question therefore is, despite the statement we made in the earlier position that India has a very strong industrial and infrastructure base, why is India's export of goods so anemic and poor? It's extremely interesting that the merchandise exports, there is a deficit possibly made up by the services export surplus, and therefore we are looking at that balance closely. Otherwise, merchandise export by itself is having, the imports are much higher than the exports concerned. And therefore, can export services export grow faster, because this is the way the balancing is happening, that the services exports are lending to and subsidizing the deficit in the merchandise exports. What can be the impact of President Trump's potential tariff on Indian export? Nothing has happened as yet. He has spared India as yet. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We, in the anticipation, have reduced some items of customs duty tariff to say 10% only. Will allow American goods to come in a little better. Therefore, possibly looking at some anticipatory measures to say that he will not have tariffs again. So, Dr. Govinda, your comments on that.
Well, I think the basic requirement for your exports to expand is competitiveness. And right from the beginning, in fact, Saurabh talked about socialism in a capitalist economy. There is this beautiful book by my good friend Arvind Panagadia on the Nehruvian, this thing, basically saying that the thing started with the second five-year plan where they said they started talking about a capital-intensive industrialization in a labor-abundant economy. They talked about where you need to really have the scale necessary for competitiveness in exports. We focused on small-scale industry. These are the two problems that we had. And of course, Arvind goes on to talk about 20 economies. I think only one of them, B.R. Shonai, basically objected to the fact that size of the plan is too large, and then therefore you will create money and there will be inflation. But nobody talked about the logic of this particular this thing. And in fact, Arvind goes on to say that even in the thinking of among the academic economists who have been trained in India, that is the case except by one person. And it so happens that that one person is me, inviting me. So the competitiveness is the essential condition for exports. And we do not have competition. We have focused on small-scale industries. They are not competitive. I've already talked about it. And then we need to really, apart from increasing the scale, even the tax policies. You say you have a value-added tax, which is a goods and services tax. We have messed up the tax anyway. On top of it, we say that the petroleum products are outside the system. Cascading that is coming in the transport sector is enormous. Every product that has a tax on tax, markup on tax, tax on markups. I mean, these are the type of things that we have. And I'm only giving an example. There are several such things. And if you really want to have exports, and that one of the things that they have done is, since 2017, they have been increasing tariffs. And obviously now, Trump is going to come down, so they have done some amount of tweaking of the tariffs. And why they are increasing the tariffs? Because they want to give domestic protection, because we don't want to do the reforms that are required to do the reforms. So it's all a connected thing. So I think there is no other way but to undertake the reforms in order to make the economy competitive, increase the scale of production, and then bring in new technology. That's the only way we can survive.
Saurabh, your comments on this? Ease of doing business, geopolitical tensions. How is it we're looking? How is the picture looking for India, therefore?
Yeah. We look the chief economic advisor. The chief economic advisor said in his survey that the government should get out of the way. But I think all of us in this room have heard such pronouncements for a while. And whilst I hope that the CEA's government should get out of the way comes to pass, I'm not sort of holding my breath for that. I'll come at it slightly differently, right? Remember, post-independence, we decided to build these elite universities, and we invested heavily in higher education. The result of that is our massive IT services exports. So for a poor country, we are one of the 50 poorest nations in the world. We have, I think, $250 billion of IT services exports. We also have, over and above that, another $200 billion, I think, of remittances from $125 billion of remittances from Indians living abroad, right? So you have 250 plus 125, $375 billion coming into the current country. That's nearly 10% of GDP. That So 450, right? So you have over 10% of GDP coming in. What does that do? That lifts up, overvalues the Indian currency. So from a manufacturing exporter's perspective, leaving aside all the red tape that the poor fellow is dealing with, you jack up the valuation of the currency, which almost condemns you to lack of competitiveness globally. Now there is a way to deal with this. The straightforward way to deal with this is for the RBI to say, let's lift the LRS ka limit. LRS limit is $250,000, right? If they lift the LRS ka limit, Indians will spend more abroad, invest more abroad, both ways. That will in turn give the currency a value at which exporters can be competitive. But that sort of thinking, unfortunately, we don't have in the places that matter. And instead of lifting the LRS limit, we have TCS. TCS means every time I go abroad and work, I pay 20% every time I swipe my card for a meal in New York, right? And then I have to go to my HR and claim it back. So we sort of have misguided ourselves on how to create a competitive export economy. Even the core of getting the currency at a valuation where exporters can benefit, that the system doesn't want to give the exporter. As a result, the exporter tries their best, but if you have an overvalued currency, it's very difficult to compete with China in the world market.
Saurabh, I will challenge you on that. I think Indian corporates are making excessive profits because of high protection. I'll give you data. In 2023-24, corporate tax payments before refunds were 11,35,000 crores. GDP was about 296 lakh crores. That is about, so 11,35,000 crores into 4 is about, at 25% effective rate is about 45 lakh crores. 45 lakh crores and 296 lakh crores is about 15% of GDP. This year will be about 12.5 to 13 lakh crores. That is gross, not net of refund, because refunds are very high. And I'll give you data. And on a GDP of 326 lakh crores, that's 15%. Which country has 15% corporate profit, pre-tax profit to GDP?
I agree, MDP, our corporates are profitable.
They're making too much of money because of lack of competition. We are paying for that. We are getting impoverished. All of us are paying too much.
I agree, but we are using non-tariff barriers. We are using tariff barriers and other protectionist means such as this BIS certification. That's the easiest way to keep foreign stuff out. You say that XY mineral water needs BIS certification, and foreign mineral water, we don't give it to. So we're using variety of means to keep foreign companies out, which in turn means all of us end up paying over the odds, and domestic companies make money.
Why aren't Indian companies reducing prices and trying to dominate the market and become big exporters by volume? Why are they looking at more profits, which is good, because people like you say, what is your ROI? What is your return on net worth? If your ROI should be 20%, 18%, why did 20% come down to 19.5%, then beat down the stock? You people are responsible.
That's the red tape. No? So the smaller companies are struggling to make money. The big boys are killing it, and thankfully we are making a little bit of money by investing in the big boys.
Next.
Nagar. Just want to add one point. You see, the exportability of Indian goods is largely dependent on the manufacturing environment. Now, services sector, the IT sector has made a world of difference. But in terms of manufacturing, now I'm doing number of cases relating to simple cases, like, some 10 people gang up inside a factory and create commotion and stop production for 1 month. That case is going on now for 10 years to make sure that those 10 guys go home. Right? 10 years is still going on. So what kind of labor legislations do we have? How can you expect an Indian manufacturing unit to be competitive and work better and deliver better performance when it is pitted against these kind of regulations? So I think it's high time that something is done about this. The new labor code is not enforced. And even if it comes, the idea of a contract employment, the idea that you employ somebody for 5 years, the courts start looking at it. Government says, oh, this poor guy, you gave him 5 years job, what should he do next? Well, it's for him to find out what his skills are and what he can do. How long will you continue to protect them is one thing. The second thing is for services export. There are so many, other than the IT sector, which is standing on a different footing. Take, for example, the market for Indian lawyers, Arbitration International, Singapore. They're talking about international arbitrations where India should become the hub and all. But we have a bullock cart type of legislation when we want to fly like a supersonic speed. How's that going to happen? It's never going to happen. So we need to change, the government has to change the entire environment in which these industries are working. Only then you're going to be super competitive.
I think that's very interesting. We have to be super competitive. We have to open up, make it competitive. Finance Minister, what is your answer?
In the last 10 years, in several aspects, including financial and non-financial, our government has demonstrated a steadfast commitment to ease of doing business. We are determined to ensure that our regulations must keep up with technological innovations and global policy developments. A light touch regulatory framework based on principles and trust will unleash productivity and employment. Through this framework, we will update regulations that were made under old laws. To develop this modern, flexible, people-friendly, and trust-based regulatory framework appropriate for the 21st century, I propose 4 specific measures.
Very interesting. You saw the MPs behind her. They were all saying, idella yenidu, arthane agala. Regulator yenidu. What is she saying? FDI limit for insurance 100%, very good. Procedures for speedy approval of company mergers, very good. I think NCLT now, Naganand has enough members on the bench. Another disaster. High-level committee. Moment there's a problem, set up a high-level committee. By the time committee gives a report, this government job will be over, then it's over. Jan Vishwas bill, that is very good. Requirement and process speedy approval of company mergers to be rationalized. India Post Payment Bank services to expand it. Investment friendliness index of states. Okay, very good. Next. Are these reforms adequate for improving ease of doing business? Excessive regulatory control by regulators like RBI. I'm naming RBI. Because RBI is doing something much beyond what Parliament has given them powers under Section 6. And I think we're all fighting it out, right? They're issuing circulars as if they are God. They don't listen to anybody. They listen to you and treat you like dirt. They don't even reply to letters that you give. How can we bring down regulatory tyranny? Not cholesterol tyranny. In your opinion, what are the next generation reforms? Naganand, go full blast.
The sooner they realize that this kind of regulation is not in anybody's interest. You see, if somebody's got power, they don't want to give up that power. So the power is vested in them, and slowly what is happening is they're grabbing more and more power which is not vested in them also. And today, you know, if a bank gets a letter from Reserve Bank, from the chairman to everybody else is first shivering, and then, you know, he goes and, you know, he does everything that Reserve Bank says we should do, instead of questioning them. Very rarely do we come across a bank fighting the Reserve Bank to say, well, what you're doing is not right. So the Reserve Bank example, any number of cases been appearing for. It's the way they do things is atrocious. There was a case where there's a complaint filed against a company saying that this company is a fraud account. After the investigation, the police filed a report to say this company is not fraud. For 2.5 years, Reserve Bank does nothing. Just imagine what's the position of this company. For 2.5 years, it can't go to borrowing, it can't go to another institution. They just stifled it. And now when you file a writ petition, overnight when the court issues notice, they just issue a letter to say we are withdrawing this classification with liberty to institute fresh proceeding. I mean, this is atrocious. This is one example of how Reserve Bank is functioning. Now, like this, various other regulatory bodies also. The SEBI, for example, I mean, the kind of regulation that they are doing, 90% of the orders passed by SEBI are set aside either by the Securities Appellate Tribunal or by the Supreme Court.
90%?
90%. This is what our experience has been. So the thing is, these regulators must realize that their role is somewhat limited. And if they don't do that, it is not possible for anybody to work in a free environment here. Yes, you can have broad policy, you can have broad overall guidance as to how it should be done, but it can't be this kind of a micro-level regulation of everything and anything that anybody who's regulated is doing. That's where the regulators are really coming in the way of.
You said that regulators are going beyond the law passed by Parliament. Yes. Please explain that.
There are any number of cases which come before the courts
where a petitioner goes to court to say that this regulator has passed such an order, this order they have no power to pass, and therefore you set aside this order. Now giving a direction, you do this, you don't do this. Giving a direction to the officers of the bank to say that you must investigate this. You must not investigate this. Giving, for example, in other regulatory measures, the state electricity regulatory commission is giving certain directions which are completely outside its purview. It is directing the government to do something in matters relating to taxation. Now, the thing is that everybody wants to grab power, everybody wants to do something in the guise of regulation, which is not within their power. And the courts are full of cases where excess use of legislation is before the courts, and a large number of them the courts find this is something which is...
Why is the government given up its power? Why is the government quiet? Because, bureaucrats want to oppress all of us. Why are giving the power of oppressors to a third party?
Government has no control over the regulator. I think
bureaucrats have control, Naganand. Bureaucrats want control. Why are they giving up control?
Correct. See, as government, now for example, can the finance ministry issue a directive to chairman of SEBI to say do this or don't do this? It's I am an independent regulator, don't tell me anything. Same thing, the state government in electricity sector, they can lay down a policy, but they can't issue a directive to the Electricity Regulatory Commission or the Appellate Tribunal that you decide in this manner or confine yourself. So it has to go back to courts. And you know what happens when you go back to court? No? Everything is stuck.
You want to say something, Saurabh?
So I was just giving an example of this. So we have to do a lot of research. We did research. We found a very good regional bank, right? High quality credit, good management team.
Mike.
Right. So we found a high quality regional bank in southern India. Right. I won't name the bank because those poor fellows have been really pulverized by the regulator. So this bank has consistently improving credit quality. Credit quality is improving on every measure. So they posted their results for the quarter to December, and I saw that increased provisioning. So I called them up and said, boss, every measure of credit quality is improving. Why are you increasing provisioning? So they told me regulator has done a study of all banks in the country and said, rest of the country's credit quality deteriorating. How can you have improving credit quality? So you also jack up your provisions to fall into line. So this is the way our country is functioning.
Dr. Rao, how do we get rid of this regulatory cross-stall, regulatory tyranny?
I have something to speak about this regulatory thing, particularly since he raised the Reserve Bank of India issue. Basically regulation in a market economy is necessary to ensure efficient competition. You should ensure that there is no predatory competition, oligopoly practices, and but then what happened is that over a period of, again, legacy, the government owns a particular entity and thinks that it doesn't need to regulate. In fact, government entities need more regulation than the rest of them. Anyway, that's one. The other important thing is there is a huge bureaucratic capture of the regulatory system.
You are saying that bureaucrats are gone from government to become regulators.
Every regulator is a retired bureaucrat. He is grateful to the state, and therefore he will not go out of this thing. I mean, there are very few TN stations around. The point simply is that he is grateful. He is not going to do, and then it's all a sort of a fraternity. The same
government was oppressive. Now they passed on the oppression to regulators, and the same bureaucrats got from government to regulator to oppress people.
I think we have to. Do you mean to say that in our country there are no experts, dealing with regulatory issues? Do we have to have only a retired IAS man coming in and regulating things? This is the question. The third important thing, I come to this Reserve Bank of India. There was a committee, the Financial Sector Legislative Reforms Commission, chaired by Justice Sri Krishna. I was a member of that committee. One of the major things we said in that committee was that the Reserve Bank has too many things to do. It should focus on monetary policy and monetary policy alone, and all other things regulation should be done by specialist regulators. It does money supply. It does banking regulation. It does foreign exchange control. It does price stability. It does financial stability. And it also has something like a growth that coming into picture. Many of them are contradictory in the sense that there is the interest conflict. But still, we said, see in Australia, for example, the securities are all regulated by ASIR, Australian Security Regulatory, and the focus, Reserve Bank of India voluntarily gave up all other things and said that we will just focus on monetary policy. We don't want to do it. We want everything. And when this report was brought in, the then Reserve Bank governor made a hue and cry of it and made sure that nothing is done with that. Now,
But why is government scared of the Reserve Bank governor? Then? Huh?
I mean, it's all in the, I told you, they're all in the same system. And Reserve Bank employees also want everything. He's not going to go against what the employees want. But in the process, what happens is our regulatory system is completely clouded, and we have a huge problem.
Naganand, one last question before the next one. This NAFRAL, this National Accounting, what is that?
Standard.
Financial report. They're going after chartered accountants. Some of them, yes, real cases. They're saying you follow this accounting standard, overriding them. What is your view on that? Is it legal? Is it right?
No, the law gives them that right, because in the Companies Act, it provides for setting up of the standards board. And the standards board can set the standards. But beyond that, it cannot give directions. Beyond that, it can set the standard, it can make it mandatory, but beyond that, it has no power to direct in individual cases, you do this, you do that, you take action. That they have no power to do at all.
They're doing it.
That's wrong.
So you're saying that members should challenge before the court?
Yes, certainly it's open to challenge. If an authority does something outside its powers, it is called
It's a constitutional challenge.
Yeah, ultra vires, it will be a writ petition in the High Court.
Thank you.
Challenge that.
Next, please. Now to the budget estimate numbers. You'll all love these numbers. Finance Minister, show us the numbers.
Coming to 25-26, the total receipts other than borrowings and total expenditure are estimated at 34.96 lakh crore rupees and 50.65 lakh crore rupees respectively. The net tax receipts are estimated at 28.37 lakh crore rupees. The fiscal deficit is estimated to be 4.4% of GDP. To finance the fiscal deficit, the net market borrowings from dated securities are estimated at 11.54 lakh crore. The balance financing is expected to come from small savings and other sources. The gross market borrowings are estimated at 14.82 lakh crore rupees.
Now here is some data. Fiscal deficit from 18 lakh crores, it is stagnant around 15-16 lakh crores for the last 5 years. This is pretty good. That means coming down as a percentage as India grows. Next. And come back. Dr. Rao, that 18 lakh crore had 4.5 lakh crores of national savings lending taken over by the government, which are lent to FCI and others. So they cleaned up the fiscal. Is actually not 18 lakh crores as of money spent. I think one very smart finance secretary who's now become cabinet secretary did that. He's a brilliant man. He cleaned up everything. And he gave us the figure, and the media is writing 18 lakh crores without getting into details as usual. Next. He's coming down. This is something that has to come down. It has to come down, and the accounting has become more clean. I think accounting has become more clean. Next. Yeah. Trends in inflation. Inflation went up, it came down again. Now you must talk also about inflation of vegetables. Brilliant men thinking that interest rates can bring down vegetable prices. Next. This is interesting. If you look at this data, gross tax revenue 12.73, 13.47, 11.9. 11.19 I think will go up. Next year 10.82, slightly above the growth in the revenues. Tax revenues are going up. Non-tax revenues have gone up because RBI gave a very big dividend of 2,11,000 crores, and RBI hid something like 85,000 crores by taking it from revenues, showing it net. I wrote an article on the media. I'm going to write again. I've been reading the RBI balance sheet for the last 30 years. And capital receipts, which is borrowing, remaining constant. Total receipts are going up. And I think this is very interesting because I think the fiscal position is managed fairly well. Next. And this budget is credible. Look at the budget. Actuals versus budget, 21-22, 111% taxes collected. 22-23, 106%. 23-24 is 98% of budget estimate. 24-25, 98, it will go up to 100. And if you look at tax receipts are pretty good. I think they're done well. Subsidies have been controlled. I think, we're spending less. Actual versus budget. If you look at expenditure, we're spending more. And receipts growth. Actual 23% growth on current year's revenue as against budget estimate. I think if you look at that, revenues have grown really well. Next. And this is interesting. Look at personal tax. 8.33 lakh crores to 14.3 lakh crores in 3 years. People are paying more taxes. Look at the bottom. Direct tax to GDP has gone up to 7.1% in 3 years. That's very good, doctor. And indirect tax has come to 4.9. So incidence of indirect tax is there. Tax to GDP is 12%. 12% is pretty good. People say we are under-taxed. 12% plus 6 to 7% in state taxes is 18 to 19% of GDP for such a poor country, right? Next. And look at this. This is interesting. These figures you must really see. You see, corporate tax this year till January 12 has gone up by 17% gross. And individual tax has gone up by 22% gross. But this year they paid 3,74,000 crores of refund. Last year they paid 2,62,000 crores. In 2 years they paid about 6 lakh crores of refund. So the net tax collection, corporate has gone up only 8%, individual is still high at 22%. And that's why people don't understand. They're saying that corporate tax collection jasti illa, individuals are paying more taxes because they're giving old refunds. They clean up all the old refunds, money is coming, and that's pretty good. But next year, when they gave you that 1 lakh crore on 22% gross, even if it goes up by 8%, refunds are not there, net tax collection will be higher than the budget. So what they're giving is what excess they're collecting, they're giving you back and making you so very happy. You can see everybody hugging the finance minister for giving the middle class something. So just see this mathematics. This maths is important. Next. Corporate tax is grown by 9.33%. CAGR from 16, 17, 25, 26. Individual tax is 17% CAGR. 17% a year for 8 years. Right? 10 years. This is incredible. 12.84%. Next. Tax collection at 10.8 is higher than nominal GDP. Total tax to GDP is 12%. Budget estimates have been conservative, good budgeting. So Dr. Rao, what is your view on increase of tax to GDP ratio from 10 to 12% in the last 3 years? Do you think it can go up further? Why is personal income tax so buoyant in the last 3 years? At 20% CAGR. Each year, 20% increase in personal income tax. Why is it so buoyant? Because the economy has not grown 20%.
Before I answer that question, I just want to make some small correction. Yeah, the personal income tax growth is considered to be quite high. And in fact, I would always, take budget estimate with a pinch of salt. Because though it has been realistic in the last 4 years, this year with the 1 lakh crore, giveaway, and if you assume that the
next slide, show the next slide,
rise,
show the slide.
The revenue will rise
come
by
back.
1 lakh crore giveaway. If you assume that it will rise by 14.4%, as I made the calculations from the revised estimate. That means that if you don't take that 1 lakh crore, you are assuming a 22% increase.
You're wrong. Please, you are wrong for the child, because refund will be less next year. You see, that's why I gave the refund figure. This year refund is 1,70,000
I'm not talking
crores.
about a refund at all.
No, I'm talking.
Talking about the net tax revenue shown
I
in the
understand.
budget.
Next year this refund will not be, large refund will not be there. So a 10%
No,
growth
I'm
will
not
reach to 14%.
talking about the refund, Mr. Pai. I'm talking about, your increase in exemption limit and various other things that tax giveaway that has
1
happened.
lakh crore.
That is 1 lakh crore.
Yes.
But if you add that 1 lakh crore, the growth rate works out.
Higher.
That's the point
okay.
I'm making.
Understand.
I'm making that point. That
so,
works
but
out.
I'll explain to them.
No,
Doctor
yeah.
is saying if the 1 lakh crore was not given away, it would have
It-
grown at 24%.
22% according to the budget estimate, which is very unrealistic.
Why is
Okay.
that? No.
No, no.
Why is it growing up?
Let me make the point. It is true that the personal income tax has been buoyant, but the fact, quite a lot of it has to do with, bringing in more technology and greater compliance and various other things. It's also partly true, particularly in the corporation tax, because you see, you have the GST. There is a comparison of GST, because there's the same numbering system. So these things have happened, and it is also true that by and large, the revenue estimates have been, sort of realistic over a period of time. In fact, in yesterday's column, that's one of the first thing that I've said. Particularly for revenue, estimates must be realistic, otherwise it leads to tax terrorism. Because you give higher targets to the collectorates just go about levying the taxes and then, assessing, wrongly, because you see, 20% of the tax has to be paid if you, whatever is the assessment, then you can go. 75% of the cases in the tribunal are, decided in favor of the SSEs. 78% in the high courts are decided in favor of the SSEs. Over 70% are decided in the Supreme Court in favor of SSEs. I mean, these are the numbers given by the Comptroller and Auditor General, not mine. So the point is, tax has been buoyant. But like Surjit Bala, don't try to say that we have reached the 19% and we are this thing. No. Even when you have 12%, which is quite a respectable number, I would say, the state government taxes work out to somewhere about 5.5 to 6%. It comes to about 18%, which is much better than what you had 2-3 years ago. But then, I mean, if you do a very analytical exercise, looking at the countries with comparable level of development, urbanization, various other things, my own econometric analysis shows that you should be about 19 to 20%. Not very far.
Okay.
Not very far. But this work I did some 3 years ago, and which is published in an international journal. But that apart, the revenues have been buoyant mainly because of the better compliance. But I think a lot more needs to be done as far as the income tax is concerned in terms of cleaning it up.
Yeah,
That's a different issue.
Now I want to ask everybody a question. Put your hands up if you agree with me. Is compliance improved substantially in the last 3 years? Are people paying more taxes because they're stuck with Form 26A? If that is true, please put up your hands. So because of 26A and AI, everything is coming into the statement. 26A. Is all coming into the statement, right? Nobody can do anything, right? AIF. Annual information statement, AIS, right? So now work becomes easy, right? You can write the algorithm and it will make that tax thing, right? That's the major reason you are saying. Feedback. Okay. Now, Naganand, tell me one thing. If you look at all this data, technology has played a part in increasing compliance. As also the refunds for the future, will it come down because the 20% rule to go in appeal came 5 years ago. With the 6 lakh crore, all the old refunds at 40-50% have been cleared. So the future is going to be better. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's perfectly correct. Because, there was like a guillotine. That guillotine said that only after certain limits you can go up in appeals. So whenever appeals, are beyond those limits, mercilessly, I mean, the law was amended, so nothing much had to be done to say we are closing this appeal. So hundreds of appeals got closed in Supreme Court and High Court everywhere. And as a consequence of all those things, refunds had to come in. So I think in future that may not happen. But the thing is, still the, what shall I say, the sensitivity of the assessing officers to be reasonable is still not inculcated in them. If there are two views possible, they must have some kind of a think tank before take a decision. But invariably, the orders that I see, I find, most of them are completely one-sided. There are always cases where there is, apparently the answer is that it is taxable, but there are those areas where, it is not taxable, but they will say, "Humko kyun chahiye? Let's really levy the tax," and then see what happens. So that attitude has to change, I think.
We'll move on to the direct taxes as to what is the finance minister making a statement to us.
I now come to my direct tax proposals. In Part A, I have briefly underlined taxation reforms as one of key reforms to realize our vision of Viksit Bharat. In respect of criminal law, our government had earlier ushered in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, replacing Bharatiya Danda Sanhita. I am happy to inform this august House and the country that for new income tax bill will carry forward the same spirit of Nyaya in its drafting as well. The new bill will be clear and direct in text, with close to half of the present law in terms of both chapters and words. It will be simple to understand for taxpayers and tax administrators, leading to tax certainty and reduced litigation.
Naganand, for you itself, the last statements were very proverbial statements, very easy to understand, simple, easy to administer, leading to better compliances. Now, these are some of the proposals on the direct tax. Threshold for senior citizens have been there for non-deduction of tax at source. TCS on that foreign remittances that Saurabh was talking about has been increased from 7 to 10. There was a clash between two sections, one with TDS and TCS. Therefore, they said we will eliminate the clash by removing the TCS section itself. There is also a higher tax reduction at source if there are non-filers. That has now been taken away as a law. Self-occupied properties, you have two properties being exempted. There were certain conditionalities attached. Those conditions have been removed now. Certain payments, TCS delayed payments, have been decriminalized. There's going to be an interesting statement about the international transactions. You will have a forward-looking advanced type of ruling. Scope of safe harbor is going to be widened and expanded. Startups have been given 5 more years window for the purpose of claiming tax benefits. Even in the same benefits in terms of gift city concessions are now being extended up to 31st of March 2030. Some amendments to the categorization of investment made by AF1 and 2. When they invest in an underlying security concern, it's going to be mandatorily called as capital assets, such that there will be a flow up to the investors concerned also in terms of the categorization. No income tax payable up to 12 lakh of rupees. Slab rates change across the board to benefit all taxpayers concerned. I'm not going to talk about this slab. You're all very familiar with this, have had good amount of discussions concerned. This is the way in which the tax is going to be functioning, 25 March and 26 March. The FM made a mention that there's going to be substantial savings, the cumulative amount of which is 1 lakh crores that will be given back to the people concerned to have additional monies in their hands, and how that's going to be utilized is a matter of some debate for us. Next. Now, which are the other countries, top countries in the world, and what are the minimum tax rates, what are the maximum tax rates? Look at UK, 20 is minimum, 45 is maximum. So look at this on the right hand side. We have about 45, 45, 45, 43, 37, and Brazil is 27. So we are in that same category where other countries are there, developed countries in the world. We all believe that we're paying significant amount of taxes concerned, but the question is not at the highest rate of tax. The question is, when do this highest rate of tax kick in? That's an important aspect. That's not addressed in this slide concern. We also have a lowest rate of tax, which are China begins from 3% and goes up to 45%. Japan begins from 5% and goes up to 45%. India also begins at 5% and goes up to 37.5%. Next. Now, this is an interesting issue in terms of disputes. There was a mention about disputes now. How many are the disputes concerned now? What is the total period-wise? 1 to 2 years, we have 3,77,000 cases. 2 to 5 years, we have 6,90,000 cases. 5 to 10 years, we have 2,38,000 cases. 10 years, we have more than 10 years, about 30,000 cases. Possibly Naganand will have some more from his own experience to say that which are the battles that is fighting for this access is concerned. And the total amount that is being locked up is a significant amount of money that's there. And amounts not under dispute is another table concern. So, total amount during 2012-13 was 4,92,000 crores, which now stands at 31,10,906 crores. Look at this now, last 12 years concerned. From 4,92,000 crores of disputed taxes, now we are looking at 31 lakh crores.
Promise eradication of tax terrorism.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, so this is 31 lakh crores. Is it representative of tax terrorism? It's a very important aspect for us to look at. And that's what Naganand was making mention about. The sensitivity is not there in the administrator's concern. Although the FM makes a statement this time, trust first, scrutinize later. I believe you. That's what the statement made earlier. File, smile and go. Then the people are saying, file, your smile will go. Next. The question therefore is, revenue of 1 lakh will be foregone. That's being more money in the hands of the people concerned. Tax reduction for middle class. This is a very middle class budget is what we're saying. For the middle class, a class budget is one way of looking at things. Or a middle class budget itself is a very temporary budget itself by itself. Is welcome. Will it spur economic growth? Tax disputes have gone up. Why is government unable to stop terrorism to reduce disputes? This is a very significant aspect that we are all feeling the pinch of it. Will the quality of life in middle class improve due to direct tax benefit? 1 lakh crores going back to the people concerned. How do you think that's going to be spent by the people concerned? Naganand, we'll begin with you first.
I think this overall figure of 1 lakh crore looks like a very big sum. But if you boil it down to what each person is going to be left with, what 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 is really not such a large sum of money which they are going to spend like that. Most of them, if you have a household budget and if you are going to be able to save 10,000 rupees a month, the ladies will not allow the men to spend that 10,000. They'll say, we'll buy some jewelry, or we'll put some money in the bank account, or we'll go for mutual fund. They'll go to Saurabh and say, please give me some investment. So that's the Indian mentality. So unlike the West, I don't think this is going to lead to such great spurt in expenditure, because the sum in their hands is not such a large volume. That's what I believe. But the tax disputes, there is a problem with tax disputes. I've already mentioned it. So I think it's important for them to sensitize, especially if you are unfortunately being assessed by an officer who's retiring in the next 6 to 1 months or 1 year. You can never get an order in your favor. Even if you have a 100% case, because he'll be frightened of two things. My pension will be held up. There'll be a disciplinary inquiry against me. And, this is how it works. So I think they need to do something about that.
Saurabh, you have been in the industry you're functioning in. You're going through a maze of regulations concerned. And therefore, what is your reaction to the tax environment that is there in which you're functioning today?
So let me first answer as an investor, then I'll try to answer as an economist. So the investor in me is happy because this sort of thing makes the stock market overjoyed, and the consumption stocks in our portfolio are up 10% since this announcement. Now, so that's the investor in me, right? So Trent, for example, is a holding of ours. It's a big part of several of our portfolios. Trent is up 10%. So, and I won't come on TV to deny that Trent will benefit at the margin from this. But the economist in me says that 1 lakh crores. So we've learned from legends like Dr. Rao that the multiplier, the benefit to the economy is barely, when you give a tax break, it's say 1.01. So 1 lakh crore will lead to potentially at most economic growth of a similar amount. 1 lakh crore is barely 0.2% of our GDP. So even if people went and spent every rupee, contrary to what Naganand ji said, suppose they spend every rupee, GDP growth in F26 will be boosted by 0.2, 0.3%, right? But I don't think they will spend that money. I think I agree with Naganand sir. RBI has pointed out several times in the last 6 months that net household savings less borrowings, is at its lowest rate since 1977. With household savings so devastatingly depleted, I think several households will use some of this money to buffer their depleted coffers, and as a result, the actual boost to the economy will be actually less than 0.1%. Hence, from an economic context, I don't think it's a big issue. It's not a big stimulus, and my view remains that we are in a cyclical slowdown. We had 3 decent years of economic growth. We're in a cyclical slowdown. It will take us 5, 6, 7 quarters to reverse that.
Just come down to one slide. I want to ask a question. Come back. See here, the amount's not under dispute. If you read the small print, it says, amount not under dispute, not collectible because the assessees are not available. No, this is tax terrorism. That is 15 lakh crores.
Yeah, that's massive.
They're not available, not traceable. So how did they raise this demand? How did they raise this demand, Naganand? What is happening? 15 lakh crores, Naganand. Because, you read the budget figures. Assessee is not traceable, right, Krishnan? Not traceable and not collectible. They're showing it there. In Parliament, nobody's asking this question. Even RG, who's asking about China and production and all kind of stuff, is not asking this question. I don't think they've read this budget. What is wrong with this? Why is it happening?
I think there are 2 reasons for this. One is these exorbitant demands that have been made, which is like a book entry. It's really not due. And the second thing is the assessees whom they assess, large number of them are vanishing companies. Many of them are in CIRP or liquidation proceedings. It is irrecoverable. Nothing can be done. It's like, somebody giving a bank guarantee for 100 crores. And when he's sued, he says, well, I don't have 100 rupees also. Do what you want to do. So you will file what? Personal insolvency case. What is going to happen? Somebody comes to his house and say, personal insolvency, give me all your asset details. He'll say, yes, this is 100 rupees, this is all I have. So he is sitting scot-free. So this demand is something very highly inflated situation. So most of it is irrecoverable. Like, we know in business is something bad debt. So this is bad debt to the government. But I agree with Mohan that there has to be some analysis done about this. Who made this assessment? Who are those assessees? Why it's not recoverable? I think, famous personalities in the Indian beer market who are now enjoying in London, they also owe money to government. So people like that are there.
Naganand, Arun Jaitley and the BJP promised in 2014 they'll stop tax terrorism. 2012, 13 and 14, disputes were 5 lakh crores. Now it's gone to 31 lakh crores. What have they done to stop tax terrorism? They promised in the manifesto, they promised in Parliament, he spoke everything. Why is it they're not able to monitor this and bring it down?
Yeah, this is only reason is there is pressure from government. And also, I can tell you from my own personal knowledge that in terms of directing the tax authorities to make exorbitant assessments on certain category of people, there is directly interference from government. Yeah, very much there. They are actually looking at people for political and other reasons and telling let go of these hounds. This is something which is happening.
No, but why is Parliament not discussing it? Why are MPs not raising it? Why is the media not talking about it, raising this issue? It's a very critical issue. Nobody knows?
Yeah.
Did you people know about this? No.
How many channels criticize BJP? I think if you make a count, then you'll know why.
Okay, I think I'll not ask any further questions.
Well, I don't pretend to understand this, but then there is quite a lot of this areas which cannot be collected anyway, and it's better that they write it off and clean it, rather than carrying it year after year. That's one. The other thing that I wanted to say is that, a best practice approach to tax reform is to have broad base, low rate, less differentiated rates, and a simple and transparent system. That will reduce a whole lot of burden. Now, it's good that they said that, look, we are going to have an alternative to the old system where you have a lot of tax preferences. Because, you know, I mean, again, tax is not a Kamadhenu. You can't do so many, achieve so many objectives through tax policy. Now, you have to get rid of all these tax preferences and keep the rate low. But then why do you want to have 7 rates? Why do you want to have 7 rates? I have never been able to understand it. Why do you want to continue with the old system? You say, come up and say that 75% of the people have moved out to the new system. Get rid of the old system. Why do you want to create a confusion? Why don't you just reduce the number to some 3 rates and be done with it? I don't know what prevents them from doing that.
Is it a failure of the political leaders not to correct this? A failure. No, Doc, recently in the GST, Doc, in the GST they had a popcorn tax. Finance minister spent half an hour on TV explaining the popcorn tax. What are the 29 finance minister doing in the GST council when the officials say we should have a popcorn tax, 3 taxes based upon, what are they doing? Why are they listening to this popcorn tax? 29 finance ministers, our representatives. Why are they not saving us from this tyranny?
No, that is because I told you that larger the number of people in a coalition, more difficult it is to take a decision. And these 29 fellows, each one of them thinks what happens to my revenue. And they don't have the confidence in themselves.
Popcorn 300 crores, popcorn 21 lakhs.
They don't have a secretariat which gives them a good research output and say that this is the thing.
Total GST.
No, labor intensive industry called construction is taxed at the rate of 28%.
Yes.
Which country does it? You tell
Yes.
me. And you have a labor abundant economy. Which country does this 28% thing on cement, steel and things like that? And then we are happy. And there are people who come up and say that, oh, we are revenue neutral. Revenue neutrality has declined now because the design is wrong. Revenue neutral has declined because you have created conditions with so many rates, so much of a confusion, there is so much of a misclassification. A restaurant owner, if he does the catering, he has to pay 18%.
Yes.
And if
restaurant 5%.
A restaurant owner has a catering on the side.
Yeah, 5%.
I mean, so we had created the demons and we have to face it.
Doc, popcorn can give you 200, 300 crores in 21 lakh crore GST collection. 200, 300 crores, half an hour on TV, 29 finance minister nodding this, howdu ಮಾಡಿ ಏನು ಪಾಪ್ಕಾರ್ನ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಹಾಕಿ ಹೌದು 3 level tax.
Sugar coated popcorn, salt coated popcorn, popcorn in a bag, popcorn in We'll go into indirect taxes now. This is the last question there before we end. Nothing much on indirect, just have it. Most of the indirect taxes, GST is outside the budget itself.
Indirect taxes. My proposals relating to customs aim to rationalize tariff structure and address duty inversion. These will also support domestic manufacturing and value addition, promote exports, facilitate trade, and provide relief to common people. Rationalization of customs tariff structure for industrial goods. As a part of comprehensive review of customs rate structure announced in July 2024 budget, I propose to 1. Remove 7 tariff rates. This is over and above the 7 tariff rates removed in 23-24 budget. After this, there will be only 8 remaining tariff rates, including 0 rate. 2. Apply appropriate cess to broadly maintain effective duty incidence, except on a few items where such incidence will reduce marginally. 3. Levy not more than 1 cess or surcharge. Therefore, I propose to exempt social welfare surcharge on 82 tariff lines that are subject to a cess.
Customs duty collection as per the budget documents was about 3,17,000 crores. And most of the indirect taxes are going through GST, which is staying outside the budget itself. Now, in relation to customs duty, to remove 7 tariff rates, what the FM was mentioning in a speech concern, levy not more than 1 cess or surcharge, 36 life-saving drugs and medicines to be fully exempted, additional 35 additional capital goods for manufacturing and 20 additional capital goods for mobile phone batteries to be exempt to boost domestic manufacture. To fully exempt BCT on cobalt powder, there's a basic customs duty on cobalt powder waste, scrap of lithium, battery, lead, zinc. Next. Next slide. Yeah. We'll go back to the question, Dr. here. Is the custom duty reduction due to Trump threat or a change of heart in the government? Are we now saying that we are preempting the tariff being levied by the US government by having a reduction here of those items that the US is going to import here? Will it help make in India? Do these indirect tax proposals help in promoting exports? These are the same questions all around. Boost domestic manufacturing, increase tax collections. Do they help in reducing compliance burden and improving tax administration? Doctor, your reaction. Doctor, your reaction.
Well, to the extent that they have reduced the number of rate categories, I think that's a good thing to do. I would go all the way and say that you don't really require these, sort of even 7 rate categories. Because one of the basic principles in international trade theory is that, if you have differential rates, the effective rate of protection will be much higher than the nominal rate of protection. Particularly if you levy the tax lower rate on the inputs and higher rate on the outputs. Effective rate will be much higher than the nominal rate. So generally the theory tells me that you need to bring down the tariffs and you need to bring down the number of rates anyway. So to that extent, reduction into 7 is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. I think they should go further. But I would also like to say that customs duty is not levied for revenue reasons. So issues of revenue doesn't come into this picture at all. It's a question of protection, and so depending upon what level of domestic protection you want, you do that. Revenue comes in, and that's the problem, because bureaucrats think that there's a revenue item and go on, jacking up the tariffs. The third important thing that I want to say is that it's important that the tariff levels will have to come down if you really want to make the economy competitive. And that would also require you to undertake many of the domestic reforms so that the economy is competitive, including the bureaucratic reform which has been talked about. Now, whether these will reduce tax compliance, I don't think it will have much of an effect on tax compliance. And, tax compliance will have to be, to the extent that the complications are less, compliance cost will be less possibly. But then I think what they have done is they have continued to do some tinkering of the customs duty rather than giving a direction to the customs duty.
They're not reading the Chellaya committee report. Naganand, compliance, will it come down?
I don't think it's going to result in any change in compliance levels.
Mindset.
No, I don't think it's going to make any change. But
No.
one of the questions was whether this is a Trump effect, but I don't think it is a Trump effect.
No, there is. They brought down on import of cars, CKD and everything, high-end motorcycles because of Harley Davidson. They sent a message to Trump, we have brought it down, you want more, we'll meet and bring it down. Aapko bolo. Now the final, okay, we come to the final question. Next, okay. This question is for Dr. Rao and short answers to Naganand. And for Saurabh, we're going to ask him, Saurabh, based on all the budget, which are the areas you think people should look at investment in the next 12 months? Don't give company names, but at least they're all waited so long. First time we had such a big crowd waiting till the end. Yes, Dr. Rao. Has the finance minister listened to the voice of the long-suffering middle class and given them some relief?
Yes, indeed.
Very good. Now, does the
Indeed,
budget...
she has, and actually I was surprised in some ways, because increase in the exemption limit, and then, sort of reduction in the rates that she has proposed, it does,
cosmetic things.
Yeah.
Lot of cosmetic things. It also gives a lot of publicity.
Yeah.
Saying that, look, I have taken care of the middle class.
Yeah.
So in that sense, she has taken care of the voice of the middle class. But really so, see, if only less than 2% of the people pay income tax, the effect is only on that 2% of the people.
Yeah.
About
6 crore people will see
the
the election.
But then, you know, in terms of the publicity, yes, they can do that. But, you know, sort of the 5 million people who pay the, you know, sort of file their return, only 2.
No, 8 crore people pay taxes this year. 6 crore will get relief. That's it.
Anyway.
6 crore into 24 crore people in the country.
Well, anyway, I mean, that's not going to make up for a large, this thing. For the same reason I say that all this fine-tuning of the rates, saying that I am going to bring down the equity, reducing the incomes of the rich is not going to increase the incomes of the poor. This is the basic thing that people have to understand.
Naganand?
Thank you.
I think cosmetically, you know, what she has done makes a difference, because the man in the street feels, well, there's some tax has been reduced.
All of them are happy. I tweeted, I made 10 tweets requesting Prime Minister listen to the voice of the long suppressed, oppressed middle class and give them some relief. Directly to him, not
that's been
finance
heard.
Huh?
If you tweeted before the budget, then that's been heard.
No, I think the middle class was really in pain.
Yeah.
Because of high inflation, EMI going up, school fees going up, college fees going up, income not going up so much.
Yeah. Certainly it's a relief to them.
No, wait. Yeah, Saurabh, after you, then goodbye slide.
So in terms of investing, right, so one of the earliest things I learned when I migrated to India is you have to keep it simple when the economy goes into a downturn. So you know, like when I was in primary school, we used to learn tables, right? 2 to the 4, 9 9s, 81. So one of the easiest things I learned was when India goes into a downturn, you focus on 3 sectors. Pehla sector is what Bangalore specializes in, IT. Why do you focus on IT? Because the rupee will go down, right? It's a one-way bet on the rupee. So the whole world short sellers are going to pound the rupee. The rupee will go down. There's a natural IT benefit. Thankfully for India and for Bangalore, the American economy is in great shape, so IT exports are highly likely to pick up. So you guys are probably better than me in identifying which IT stock to buy as we go into what is a strong economic position for America combined with a weak rupee. The second sector which anyway does well in so the second sector which anyway does well, other than IT, the second sector which does well in a downturn is pharmaceuticals. Right? So anyway does well, again same effect, right? We're selling drugs into the Western world, so you pound the currency, you get every dollar of imports gets you more money. Now over and above that, Trump has been very kind to us. No, he's pounded China with a 10% tariff. So other than us, the only other country which makes active pharmaceutical ingredients is China. Thankfully, they make 80%. 80% of the world's APIs are made by them. Only 10% is actually made by us. I think Trump's tariffs give us a window to increase our exports of pharmaceuticals, and therefore look for pharma companies, ideally look for companies that make the raw material, the API which goes into medicines. We're pretty good at it. There'll be also a whole ancillary ecosystem, right? APIs have a whole ancillary ecosystem. If Trump takes this further, right, he's done 10% tariffs on China. If he takes it to 20%, the pharma ecosystem in Hyderabad and Gujarat will boom mightily. Hyderabad, Vizag and Gujarat. So those are the easy ones, IT and pharma. Currency weakens, anyway you're playing global demand. By the way, the export data suggests our exports have picked up meaningfully in the last 6 months to the Western world, right? I'm not fully sure why the pickup has been so sharp. If maybe China has reduced dumping in anticipation of Trump's arrival, but the export pickup, both services and goods is pretty sharp. Now the third area is the tricky one, right? Historically, the mantra in a downturn was buy FMCG. The reason buying FMCG this time is perhaps not as much of a no-brainer is because although this 1 lakh crore has been given, 1 lakh crore, remember, is roughly 0.1% or 0.15% of GDP. Between FY19, the year ending March 19 to now, income taxes as a percentage of GDP, that share has gone up by 1.5%. So 1.5% jump in how much the government claws out of the middle class, compensated by a 0.1%
reduction, I still think the middle class is going to struggle over the next year, which is why FMCG is a tougher bet. That being said, rural India, or let's call it non-urban India, there's no really rural India anymore, there's non-urban. Non-urban is picking up nicely in the last 12 months or so. The worst of the COVID pounding is behind us. Monsoons have been good. So non-urban is picking up, and on the back of that, you might want to think about investing in things that non-urban India buys, right? So tractors, for example, cheaper clothing, cheaper apparel. And there are some FMCG companies which are more rural than urban. You might want to think about that. So keep it simple. I think we'll have several quarters of weak GDP growth. Stock market valuations are up here. Growth is down here. This is the steepest downturn in earnings growth in a generation. We've gone from 30% growth, earnings growth in Nifty 5 quarters ago to 5% in 5 quarters, right? Leaving aside, if you leave aside Lehman Brothers and COVID, this is the steepest downturn in earnings growth in a generation. And therefore, given that valuations are elevated, be careful. It's a time for caution. In these cautious times, if you want to invest, focus on exports, IT and pharma, simple, large, well-run companies. And then finally, if you really want to focus on domestic, think about non-urban consumption, tractors, motorcycles, and FMCG.
Thank you very much. And the last slide, we bid goodbye to the Finance Minister. Yes, Finance Minister. Next slide. Next slide. This was the Finance Minister. I gave you tax relief. Now what do you want? What do people want? Income. Thank you very much, folks. Great having an audience. Anybody wants to have a question? You know, we'll have question or we'll go home. Huh? Okay. New Madi. You must ask Prime Minister Modi, you've done so much for us. Give us some income also, some DBT for all of us, right? Like Kejriwal. Kejriwal, there
I request everyone to settle, please. Let's finish the program and also have the question answer. So I request all of you to sit.
Hello.
Anybody
Good
has
evening.
a question to sir?
I have
Yeah,
a question.
Yeah, sure.
Hi.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Saurabh and I'm from Vidhi. I have 3 questions and I keep it very short. The first question is pertaining to how does this budget actually help Karnataka as a state? Second one is more likely on the panelists have spoken about a sort of clogging the market in the way that there's a cronyism, that you have to know the right people in order to move forward. So as an aspiring class person, God's grace, I'm a consuming class person, but if I had to be an aspiring class person, among this cronyism, how can I make more money? And last question, I just want to hear your opinion on that Volkswagen is suing the Indian government on their tax policies again. There's going to be an international litigation on it. May I please hear your comments on that? Thank you so much for
Dr.
this.
Rao, will it help Karnataka? Saurabh, you answer the next two. No, will the budget help Karnataka?
No, how it helps. How does it help?
How will it help Karnataka?
Thank you.
Well, it helps Karnataka tax-paying people to the extent that they get the benefit. There are certain things I think the Karnataka government will have to unravel some things which comes, for example, they're talking about the benefits for the fishermen and various other things. But by and large, I think, much of the benefits have gone to Bihar rather than Karnataka or any other state.
Yeah, that is good. Bihar per capita income is 75,000. Karnataka is 4,25,000 this year. Saurabh, please answer the next two.
Question on aspiring people in India. I think this is a good place. This is a good country for aspiring people. Crony capital is only interested once you enter sectors with $1 billion plus of revenue. If you or I, anybody in this room, you can build several hundred crores, several thousand crores worth of businesses, and the crony capital is not really interested in 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 crores. So for example, we discussed education a fair bit in this session. I think there are any number of vocational training and education companies that can be built online, digitally, offline if you want to do it. They're very profitable. So for example, India needs 30,000-40,000 semiconductor designers every year. If you speak to the companies, Qualcomms and the Googles who hire semiconductor designers, they're barely getting 4,000, 5,000. A semiconductor designer with 5 years experience earns 1 crore a year. So a very lucrative trade, plenty of unfulfilled demand. I think, so you were also mentioning a trade, right? Stenographers. So, there's plenty to do in our country where you can build profitable businesses without having to worry about crony capitalists.
Okay, one lady now, final question. One lady, yes, lady. Yaar idhar hai? Question, kedamma. Mike, bega.
He's there.
Huh?
No,
we must. Kelly.
More of,
Mike.
just to get your opinion, are we moving from taxing income to taxing consumption? And is that the right way to go
Dr.
about
Rao.
it?
No, I don't think we are moving from taxing income to taxing consumption, because you see that the taxes on incomes have been increasing at a very fast rate, and in fact there are people who more modern tax theorists who basically say that wherever there is capital and capital embodied labor, it's a the migration is large, and therefore it is difficult to tax it. So, in fact, they have gone to the extent of saying that it's better to collect more tax from the value-added tax. But as far as we are concerned, I would still say that income taxes continue to be the major source of revenue.
Yeah, we are done. Well, yesterday when you watched the budget, probably it would have gone over it. But today, these gentlemen have deciphered and dissected in such a way that all of us know all the budget numbers by hand, I think. So a big round of applause to all the panelists as well as the moderator. Doc, it was a treat watching you and talking with so much data. Thank you so much for being here among us. Thank you. And Saurabh also, thank you so much. And most importantly for the tips, investment tips and the caution what you gave also. So I think all of us are keen to know that. Naganand sir, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you. And of course, always, as usual, Mohandas Pai and Padamchand Khincha sir, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Yeah, I have last bit of one more. Just I'll take 1 more minute of all of you. This program was possible because there are some, Elemerekai, what we say in Kannada, there are some people who do this. So I request Sir C.A.S. Krishnan sir to come on dais with his team, which is Shweta Devadiga, Dulipatla Hari Krishna, Mayank, Ravi and Shivram. So these are the people who have made this slide and entire presentation. So a big round of applause. And we have a small gift vouchers for us, for them. I request our chairman, Pramod, to hand over so please. I request all the panelists and moderators to hand over. Thank you to all the audience also for being so, as Mohandas sir said, being till the end. Thank you, and we'll meet you next on 14th, where we are having clause by clause analysis of tax proposals, especially the direct tax proposals, which will be taken by Padamchand, Khincha sir and Chaitanya sir. Good night and signing off today. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. Great fun, MDB. Thank you so much. Saurabh, wait, we'll go together.